guy's name again? What's the guy's name again? The hell's the guy's name again?
Anthony Mantha. Isn't he on Detroit? He's a Red Wings dude, right? Yeah. Hockey.
Yo, Caps Wild. Welcome in. It's the Deeper Dive on Sunday. Don't try to trip me up right before we get on the air, Eric Lindquist, who's always here on a Sunday. Never leaves. He's just stuck on the wall on a Sunday at Awesemo. He hangs and he's here for you. That's right. There he is. There he is. Jordan is producing, so he's stuck with the two of us, but he's mentally prepared. It took him about an hour and a half to get ready for the show mentally, and we appreciate all you out there as well. Hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to what's going on. My friend, how you doing? I know you're all geared up, geeked up, ready for the Masters, but we have NBA tonight.
Yeah, well, this is my last show. Well, I have the slate starter that I'm going to do Monday night, but this is my last real live show that I have before I leave on Tuesday, taking 4 days off there for Augusta National, heading to the Masters. I think I'm going to get to see some Tiger Woods in my life, which is just bonkers. But it's been 3 years since they had full spectators out there. It's been since 2019. So I'm excited to be one of the patrons on the ground starting on Thursday.
Well, congratulations, my friend, on getting in on that. Is this like press pass? Did you use the Awesemo site to get a credential here or what?
No. So, we were actually, I was trying to figure out if there was a way to get a credential deal where I could go in and do the podcast and everything else. I'm like, I still don't know how Augusta National might be about odds and things. Like, I'm 99% sure that they probably gamble all the time and do things of that nature. But for the most part, probably good to keep it low key there. But I'm going with my dad. My dad's gone with a group of guys on and off for like the better part of 2 decades. They like randomly found times to go. And I've never gotten the invite. So I'm getting the call up over my mom. So rip, Mrs. Lindquist, rip.
Look, man, you got in. All right.
I did.
It doesn't matter at this point how many bodies or what bodies you have to step over to get there. You got in. All right. Look at that. So welcome in, everybody. Yeah. What are you most excited about outside of winning?
Not the alert that I just got, because the freaking Detroit Pistons, man. Saban Lee, Luke Garza, Jamarco Pickett in the G League, unavailable to play today. We got news right before this show started. We were waiting on Cade Cunningham and Saban Lee. That was one of the more insane circumstances that we've ever seen on Friday, where they played a minute and then it was just everybody sat. It was really, really brutal. If you played Cade Cunningham, I thought he made sense against OKC. Thought there might be a reason to think that they would give him rookie of the year type run, but now it looks like they're just doing the opposite. They're continuing to punt, continuing to just set things up here for their franchise long-term, which I don't mind, but mid-game tanking is probably the most difficult thing to account for. It's the most brutal for our purposes. At least we got this news ahead of time. He's out and we can react to it, but it's still very, very messy.
It is. That's a great term. I think a nice little adjective to open up the show. It's messy.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter like for our purposes as much. Like, I don't know. We'll get into some stuff because I mean, this isn't on that slate. It isn't on the main slate. I don't believe. So, I mean, at least we don't have to like account for that, but it's just talking through. That's the kind of stuff that can happen in this type of DFS. Like we're in that type of a season now where weird things are going to happen and you have to be willing to embrace the variance. We're going to be getting Joel Embiid news before the end of the Live Before Lock show. So stick around, hang out for that. I'm just looking at a lot of these pieces of news. We're going to have all of the information by the time it comes. I'm going to do the best I can to give it to you the way that I perceive it to go down.
Love it. All right. So we'll do that. And we can't really meander a ton, right? Because we have a bunch of games to get through. We will fly. And I'm sure that we will derail and I'm sure that things will pop up. And that's just the nature of what happens here. Why is it always Orlando? Why do we always start? Now I feel like the schedule is trolling me as I've tried to distance myself as far as humanly possible from Mo Bamba's ass. But let's start with the Knicks on the road, -4.5. Again, this situation, trying to take advantage of it from a DFS, from a betting standpoint, just from any type of just strategy standpoint with two teams that are going nowhere and are miserable overall. Little gap, but still. Let's look at the Knicks here first. What excites you, if anything, about maybe even countering the field or gaining some leverage with a Knicks player or two?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very important team just because Julius Randle being shut down here for the season. RJ Barrett, we've seen him kind of emerge as the guy for this team. With no Julius Randle now, it goes back to his situation here. I mean, the Knicks they're Dunsky. So here you go. Build for the future. I think that makes Obi Toppin a really interesting conversation now too, because he's been an autoplay in these situations without Julius Randle before. And now you're looking at him at an inflated $5,200 tag. I still think he's very much in play for this slate, but the guy I really have a ton of interest outside of Barrett and Toppin is Mitchell Robinson. He's 5,900. Okay. We're going to have an eternal amount of value. So you're really looking to find like one or two pivots with lineups. And if you get Joel Embiid out, I think the center position really opens up because DeAndre Jordan isn't a 1-for-1. We don't have an Andre Drummond sitting behind Joel Embiid. It's really a lot of the other positions that become interesting for Philadelphia. So looking at the slate as a whole, I would love Mitchell Robinson on DK as a tournament play, sub 6%. And over on FanDuel, I think he's already one of the best tournament plays, 5,600, 1.03 fantasy points per minute on the season over on FanDuel. That goes up a little bit. The rebounding rate sees a spike as well here. I mean, Jericho Sims, maybe he gets a little bit more run just because, it's the end of the season and Mitchell Robinson is surely the better player between the two, the guy that they need to be more concerned about. But Mitchell Robinson, one of the best tournament plays, I think, on the slate.
Somebody let the dogs out.
Who? It's from The Hangover.
How much are you going against the field? I just love it now because now it's going to be a problem. It's not an issue. Bring the dog on camera. There's no problem here.
No.
So how much of this is just fading JaVale McGee, who is a cheaper option, but half of the field is on him tonight versus actually looking at Robinson as the overall gut play?
Well, here's the thing. JaVale McGee's going to be a good play. We saw, this is where it gets very, very fascinating because again, Bismack Biyombo played an irrational amount of minutes when you didn't have DeAndre Ayton. Now, with DeAndre Ayton and then JaVale McGee backing him up, it's no doubt been JaVale McGee. He has a 46.6% optimal percentage, but I'm at least concerned enough that Bismack Biyombo sees enough minutes to not make it not viable to go to a 3,800 JaVale McGee, because I think he's definitely, just talking points per dollar, the best play on the slate. I mean, he is just by a far above and away the guy, but I'm definitely going to have lineups. This isn't a position that's weak. I mean, JaVale McGee still needs to put up a pretty nice score. I mean, this is kind of what you saw on Friday, is that 30 fantasy points from a guy sub 4K sometimes is not going to be enough. At least we don't have Detroit on the main slate here. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with these two. I played some of the 2-game slate here. I still have 52 minutes to figure out how to do that while we're on a show. Best of luck to me, rip. But JaVale McGee, I like him. But Mitchell Robinson, those are the kind of guys that I think can really put up 50, 55 and give you those tournament winning type plays. And it's not that hard to get over the field. If you're playing 150, so easy to get to like 10, 15% of Mitchell Robinson and have some leverage on a play like JaVale McGee, who's no doubt a smash. You can play 2 on DK. But as it stands right now, that just wanted to kind of highlight him because we've seen so many times absent Julius Randle. He has tons of upside, and I think it's going underappreciated in our tools right now.
Anybody else you want to sneak in there besides Toppin and Robinson, if it's either or both of the backcourt players? As you know, you're at least going to get some volume here combined with Fournier and Burks. Great 3-point options, but not necessarily guys you want to go to on a larger slate.
Well, Evan Fournier, he kind of has that ability to at least knock down threes and spike scores and put up 40 plus. So I don't think he's completely out of play, but not even close to a priority for me. Over on FanDuel is kind of where he's had the better tag constantly, 5,200 compared to his 53, I believe it is over on DK. So I feel a little bit more confident taking some shots there. He's 3% in our tools right now over there. You have such concentrated ownership on certain plays on FanDuel that just finding one or two guys to get different at. But I would say small forward's actually a pretty strong position when you have guys like RJ Barrett already on his team and just a way better play. Andrew Wiggins, Karis Levert, James Harden. If there's going to be no Joel Embiid, you can play at small forward. So I think there are other plays that are just taking massive priority over him, but I still want to get to some Fournier over 3%.
All right, and let's move on, speaking of which, to the other side here.
Oh, my God.
And look, you can keep this as short and as sweet as you like, by all means. No, you could even just go turn your camera off, and I can talk about a couple of Knicks bets that I have and get the dog instead of talking about the Magic. Whatever you want, man.
Yeah, no, we can talk about Duke. He's lovely. He's a lovely dog. He's just losing his damn mind from time to time. I have nothing from this team.
Well, he's upset about what happened last night. Let's be honest.
Like this Markelle Fultz thing. I mean, he is showing why he was a number one pick in very, very limited minutes. I mean, the fantasy point rate is already up to 1.25 per minute here on the season. Him knocking down shots isn't still occurring. I mean, he's not really attempting many 3-pointers, but the things that he's able to do in just short bursts, you can take those kind of shots, but I'm more willing to just go about anywhere else here. He's already garnering like 7.9%, which on an 8-game slate in April is actually quite a bit. I don't really see his minutes getting beyond 22, so therefore I can't really get to anything from this team at all. It's a team also that's shown that they're going to close with guys like Ignas Brazdeikis and do ridiculous shit in order to tank at will. So I think Orlando's just if you want to like sprinkle in one guy here or there in 150, have fun. I'm just going to choose to do other things. I think on FanDuel, at least you have the opportunity to roster a guy like Chuma Okeke who can play bigger minutes, but even him only played 24. He's not that great of a fantasy producer. He's under 0.9 fantasy points per minute. Much better places to go on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to hit you with any like bets or anything on this game. Although Burks over 2.5 at even money. Any interest in that?
Sure.
I mean, look, the volume has been there. Fournier, I love, but the reason why I jump in real quick, Fournier is always going to be at 3.5 at the books. He's always going to be at plus money, and there's never going to be a break to go to 5+, right? It's just going to be a margin. So Burks, there's still some area to target. That's the only reason why I brought him up.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know what those minutes are going to look like in games that don't always matter here. We have him projected for 32.5 minutes. He grades out as an okay play. 6,700 on FanDuel. No, thank you. I'm willing to go just about anywhere else. I've been playing him a little bit more than I was expecting, but now up to 6,900. That kind of takes a lot of the air out of the sails for me. As a play on Odd Chopper, I mean, I'm okay. We have 12 games on the day. We have 8 games here. There's 9 games still coming up total today. I think there's just going to be a lot better places to go than the unknowns of New York.
8 straight games going over 2.5 threes. I got in at even money. So blame me if it doesn't hit. All right. This game is over 216 total. We didn't miss much anyway. Let's go to Cleveland, Philadelphia. Now, a lot of this is depending on what happens up front here. It looks like the 76ers have come to this realization that Joel Embiid will not win the MVP and they will not be the number 1 seed when it's all said and done. So I do think that if there's an opportunity to start sitting Embiid to get ready for the playoffs, because you mentioned there's no depth behind him, this would be a night to kind of do it. So we do have that hanging in the air. That's all I'm saying. Yeah,
we saw that Miami game. I mean, George Niang got a start when Joel Embiid sat. That was the last time that we saw it. They'd kind of been pushing for it here. I mean, a Milwaukee loss today helps a little bit, I think, just in terms of Joel Embiid maybe having some opportunity to play here. I don't really know what to say outside of like Joel Embiid plays. You play Joel Embiid, and I really have no interest at the current price points on anybody else. As I had said before, Tobias Harris was eventually going to start playing a lot better. He was going to be a beneficiary, and now we've seen some massive spikes in terms of his shooting. He was always going to be more of a beneficiary over Tyrese Maxey in this offense with James Harden put into it. It just took a while for them to get acclimated with the floor spacing. And now Tobias Harris is up to 7K on FanDuel. The only way that I'm playing these guys is if Joel Embiid's out. Now, that kind of makes it easy to talk about in that regard. Joel Embiid play, James Harden gets some sprinkles in the event that you get Joel Embiid or that Embiid plays. James Harden under 10K on FanDuel. That's always going to be interesting to me. He's a guy that on DK at 10.4. I have a little interest, but I mean, he's already getting double-digit ownership, so probably going to be a pass for some of the other guys on this slate. Where I'm very fascinated is if you get Joel Embiid out, I don't know how you don't just play all the James Harden and all the land, all the Tyrese Maxey at 6,200 now that he's gone down in price. Tobias Harris is 6,700 on DK. That's 7K on FanDuel, not a clear-cut priority, but it's still a phenomenal play for the FanDuel purposes. And then George Niang, I think, is going to be the guy that I would have the most interest in that front court. 3,600, Iowa State's finest, can knock down open threes, played 33 minutes in that start against Miami. I think he becomes one of the best value plays on the slate if Embiid sits.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see what's going on there. I don't think we're going to hear in the next 45 minutes. So with Terry and Emac, you're probably going to get that news coming down by all means. You keep riding that Tobias Harris train, man. This is like a hit of like crack. You feel it right away, and then you're done. Like he's gonna wear you down, man. So I've been told. Like you've told me that.
I don't know. Passing. He's hit his 3-point prop 5 of the last 6 days. Does that sound fun to you? Over 1.5.
Well, I just gave you Alec Burks hitting it 8 straight games, and I
just gave you 5 out of 6.
You scoffed at it. Tobias Harris.
Tobias Harris, 5 out of 6.
Take your head out of your Harris, will you?
Oh, I see what you did there. I like that one. That one.
I just made that up on the spot.
Jordan Klein is more entertained by our shows than anybody else's shows. Greg and I do this all the time, but there's something about you and me together that just Jordan Klein's like, oh my God, are they fight? They might actually be fighting this time. I don't know. Do they like each other? I'm not sure, but it's fun to watch.
I love it, man. It's like some Andy Kaufman bit. It's amazing.
Great. I will tell you when you are wrong, and I am fine with that.
All right. Anything else? No, we hit the Sixers again. If anything happens with Embiid, then you know it clearly. So we'll move to Cleveland here. Mobley's out, right? So we have a couple of pieces of information heading into this thing that we know we're prepared for. Look, I don't know how much of this changes with Embiid out, but I imagine that you can start attacking Philadelphia much easier, really on all levels without Embiid out there, because Matisse Thybulle is kind of left out there on an island, and you can shoot on Philly, and you can certainly get to the rim.
Yeah, you can. But here's the problem is who's doing a lot of that in this offense right now. You have no Jared Allen. You have no Evan Mobley. So your front court is in shambles, and it becomes a lot of Moses Brown, who I would say is just a guy that going back to OKC and then limited times here, and that we didn't really get an opportunity to see him in Dallas the way that we did at the tail end of last season. But Moses Brown can be a very good fantasy asset, over 1.1 fantasy points per minute here, up over 10%. I don't think that that's enough. And I know that it's a lot different. It's a $700 difference between him and JaVale McGee. Bismack Biyombo, I had talked about earlier. I think he's got to be in your center pool as well. Moses Brown deserves some massive consideration. And if he's going to be completely, 1/5 of the ownership that you're going to see, you're going to get a 50% McGee and 10% Moses Brown, I'm going to nuke that up to around 20-25%. I have no problem with it. 27 and 30 minutes the last 2 games, kind of a red herring situation with Dallas. But now with no Evan Mobley going forward, I mean, there's just another absence of bodies. And now they're looking at Kevin Love being a guy that they're still not going to give extended run to coming off the bench. I think Moses Brown really becomes interesting for me. And you talk about Matisse Thybulle. There aren't many defenders that I just give a bump up, like Drew Holiday, somebody that can certainly go lockdown when need. But even today, you see in the pick and roll for a situation like with Luka Doncic, where you can get the certain matchups you want in the NBA and get Matisse Thybulle away and then get James Harden on the ball on a guy like Garland. Garland's already going to be a fantastic play. I think you should have exposure no matter what. 9,700 over on DK is fine, but 8,700 on FanDuel is just phenomenal. He is an absolute priority play for me over there. Karis Levert, we're continuing to see him get extended minutes for the first time in a while. He burned some people, 2 slates ago it would have been, against Atlanta in that blowout. I think he's probably going under-owned at 27% on the FanDuel slate with the kind of minutes we're expecting out of him. I think everybody kind of in Cleveland has some sort of consideration, but on DK, Moses Brown, clear cut, my favorite guy to get to. Darius Garland, second, Karis Levert, third. On FanDuel, a little bit different because the center position is so loaded that we can't really just say, oh, Moses Brown needs to be played at 4,900 over there. I think you can get shares of him, but clear cut Darius Garland, Karis Levert, 1A and 1B.
Where does Moses Brown rank on the all-time Moseses?
I don't know. There's Moses Malone and everybody else. How many other Moseses parted the Red Sea of the NBA? I don't know.
Well, what about the actual
Moses? Do
you not count him? Or are you just looking at Moseses in the NBA?
Moses is in the NBA. I mean, okay. Red Sea Moses, I don't know him, but I've heard he's number pretty 1? Cool. He's got in the Moses power rankings. Yes. Moses, Covenant of the Ark. Yeah, he's number 1 probably.
Not Moses Malone. You wouldn't put fo.
I don't know. It depends how much you like basketball compared to the Old Testament, I suppose.
Yeah, look,
Moses went to Egypt and messed up some shit. So, there's that.
Yeah, and Moses Malone single-handedly brought Philadelphia a championship despite all the other stars that were around him.
Moses literally just said firstborns, line them up. It was a problem. Yeah, I'm just saying. Like Moses he was a savage. That guy got things done. He took down Egypt. He led his people out. That's got to be number one.
Are we forgetting one? We might be. Just throwing it out there to the crowd.
We'll mother Miami of God. No, we're fine.
Haven Moses, Buffalo Bills. All right, hit the thumbs up button, please. If you haven't already, my goodness, please keep us up and running, and make sure you're subscribed here as well. We'll keep throwing some Odd Shopper stuff out there, remind you about what you can do. And look, that's why we have Eric Lindquist in the house, Tim Tam 888, is because you never know. Like things pop up in conversation, and we don't just need his DFS analysis. We need his power rankings. So if we can get him,
Terry McBride, that's Moises Alou. That's a little different than Moses.
Yes,
that's a stretch, sir. But
correct.
You know what?
No, it has
Respect
to be Moses.
The Expos uniforms. Respect.
Absolutely.
The Expos uniforms.
No, you're right. Great call out there. I didn't want that fake news out there from McBride. So good catch on that by all means. All right, Miami, 3.5 point road favorite at Toronto. Low total though here. So maybe you can get some leverage depending on what you're thinking with Bam. You already talked about, if it's FanDuel or DK, you already talked about Mitchell Robinson, somebody else really at that spot. We are waiting a little bit as far as what's going on with Embiid. So that's going to be kind of in the backdrop here. But between Tyler Hero and Bam, you've got two guys on Miami that are most rostered, at least on DraftKings, about 16, 17% to the field. So not enough, I think, to be a deterrent by any means if you like either or both tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have interest in both of them tonight. You have no Jimmy Butler. That just opens up opportunity galore for some of those guys. I will say I'm pretty surprised that Kyle Lowry doesn't project out pretty well in our tools. His assist rate sees a massive spike. And in years past, one of the best parts about rostering Bam Adebayo is he's one of the best passing bigs in the NBA when given that opportunity. He just doesn't really need to do it as much with Kyle Lowry on his team now. So it becomes a little bit muddled down in terms of like, I need to go completely way over the top on Bam, but there's no doubt that Bam's probably the best power forward play over on FanDuel today. You can play him there. Don't play him at center because we have 48,000 other centers that I want to roster. And I mean, if you land on it there with some other punts, sure. But looking over on the DK slate, he goes in that bucket of just unbelievable center plays, 8,300, 16%. Once again, I have like so many guys that I want to play that JaVale McGee would be like an all-in 100% windmill slam type play on most slates. I don't know because of how many guys I want to play at center. And I know that you can definitely take the approach of just JaVale McGee, but I've just seen so many things this season where Bismack Biyombo got more run than him. And maybe I'm just a little bit gun shy in that regard that I think I might take my chances just getting over the field. I'm not going to fade McGee by any means, but getting over 16% Bam Adebayo feels very prudent for me on this slate.
So real quick, couple of super chats wanted to acknowledge, and we'll further the deeper dive on the Miami Heat before we move to Toronto. And I had a question about something on the books that I wanted to throw at you versus Odd Shopper. But Green Gang, pardon me. Come on, Eric, don't sleep on my guy, Karis. Now, this, to be fair, was right before you mentioned Karis as a good option tonight. So you two, Green Gang, I don't know why I say Gang Green because it's the Philadelphia Eagles thing, and that's why it's in my head. Green Gang, pardon me. You guys are already on the same page, all right? You and Lindquist are on the same page, so don't have to worry about that. Appreciate that. And then Aiden Jones, you see that one for you?
No, I did. Yeah, I did. Şengün Roby on DK. You got to wait on the Pokusevski news. That's kind of it's so weird to just have to talk about OKC in bulk all the time. I'd be surprised if Pokusevski plays. They'll have enough bodies. I believe they have 9 dudes lined up here at the moment. I would be surprised that in a game that didn't matter, even though Pokusevski, I don't know if they view him as a long-term piece, but I think he's shown some flashes where I think he can be a serviceable player in the NBA from time to time. Surely better than Lindy Waters III and guys of that nature. But if he's going to be out, I prefer Roby. As it stands right now, if Pokusevski plays, I prefer Şengün on DK.
So anybody deeper on Miami before we flip to the Toronto Raptors here? And again, we scraped on some guys clearly at the top that we can take advantage of without Butler there. You did mention Strus, right, as far as an option. So if there's anybody, I mean, Lowry is getting not much rostership. You could use some leverage there.
I will say this is like really disturbing, but if you landed on a share or two of PJ Tucker at 3,700 over on FanDuel, again, I don't expect much out of this because you're going to need 30 plus out of guys like this. And he's surely not that guy, but we've seen flashes with Jimmy Butler out from him. He's going to play a lot of minutes. There's only a 5-point spread. It's in Toronto. I think there's some things that may give him an opportunity. He's sub 1%. That's the most appealing part of trying to do anything there. Play a couple of shares of him and get him mixed in. Tyler Hero, 6,300 on FanDuel. I don't know what else to say. I mean, that's just a low number to be looking at there.
Why is it so low? Because the books have him at 2.5 at minus 120 made threes. And I think it's correlated across the board that there's just a low expectation for him.
Yeah, there's also just this absence of, no Gabe Vincent, no Caleb Martin is somebody that, if he's good to go here in this spot, that would be problematic where you could see fewer minutes. I just don't think he's just an absolute must on a slate like this. He falls into that mid-range, which again, everything kind of lends towards being stars and scrubsy this time of year. I definitely don't want to be going overweight on like a 6,500 Tyler Hero on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, because everything's so soft and everybody's price is so soft, it doesn't have to be as starsy and scrubsy as you would normally run into. So I'm okay landing more on a 6,300 Tyler Hero in those circumstances. I just think, absent Jimmy Butler, fantasy point per minute, increased opportunity. I'm just fine landing there, around 15%.
All right, brother. So the Raptors here, and again, 212, depending on 212.5, depending on how much you think you can attack this, or maybe there is something that opens up without having that menacing Jimmy Butler just kind of roaming around as well. So with Toronto, it doesn't really look like there's going to be a lot of heavily rostered, heavily owned guys that you could get to. I mean, Gary Trent Jr. really is a guy that pops up that is affordable and has a ton of leverage on the field. So depending on how much you even like Toronto, you could stand to gain some pretty solid leverage.
I don't know what's going on with some of these prices, like FanDuel specifically. I mean, Fred VanVleet's been eternally underpriced constantly, 7,400 there for him. But now Scotty Barnes is way down to 6,400 again, out of the middle of nowhere. And we've seen some massive upside. I talk about this mid-range on FanDuel where I'm a little bit more enticed to try to take some of these shots. On DK, everybody is like a extreme tournament dart just because they're all mid-range guys, or Pascal Siakam's 9,500. It's just site to site completely different. Over on FanDuel, I have interest in trying to get to all of these guys. Pascal Siakam is too cheap at 9K for his opportunity. Fred VanVleet, 7,400. But Scotty Barnes specifically, I don't know what the hell happened for him to drop from 79 and 8,500 he was. I know Fred VanVleet was out there for a hot second, but I really want to get overweight to 16% of Scotty Barnes on a slate like this. I did say, though, small forward could be surprisingly stacked, pending some of this other news with these shooting guard small forwards that we have at our disposal. But it's still a really good spot, I think, to take an overweight approach to one of the rookies here as they're coming down to the wire here. I mean, it's a competitive game. I think it's just a broken tag, and 5,100 Gary Trent projects out pretty decently in our tools as well. The nice thing is you just know you're getting so many minutes from those core four guys in Siakam, Barnes, Trent Jr., and VanVleet that it's pretty easy to mix them into lineups on FanDuel and be set to go.
All right, brothers. Anybody else? I mean, by the way, I played Lowry over 2.5 and Hero over 2.5. Lowry was plus money. Hero was minus 120. Lowry is hovering. He's there. No Butler. I'll take advantage of that. Hero with 2.5.
Yeah.
And it's not like minus 160.
I will say, I'll give a special shout out to OG Anunoby, who we didn't really talk about on DraftKings specifically. On FanDuel, I just think there's so many good plays there that we don't really need to land on a 5,800 OG Anunoby. Playing some pretty secure minutes as well. You can kind of be that fifth guy for Toronto that just has really secure minutes. But on DraftKings, he's completely unowned. And in the boom bust tool right now, you're getting 8.4% optimal percentage, 3.7% ownership. Just the fact that he's one of the top 10 most positively leveraged players needs to be talked about. So I think there's some viability to getting to him just as like a mix in piece in 150, but it doesn't take much to get overweight on these guys. I keep saying that over and over again, like a broken record, but it's true. Get to around 8-10% of him and you're just fine and set to go.
All right. A reminder again, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, please. By all means, we want you subscribed here, the Odd Shopper channel, as well as we'll plow through this slate, continue and bring up anything else that we see, especially if you have an angle. I know you're out there prize picking it up, but if you see anything else, all the time, man, all the time. All right. So we'll move to Phoenix at OKC. 3 starters out for the Suns tonight, which leaves Bridges and Paul and a really good still Suns team against OKC. Look at that total still. It's a 14-point spread, 222. So still a decent number overall that you can attack. And the expectation is that Paul and Bridges, at the very least, are going to be out there until they don't, right? So if this game is tight somehow in, 6 minutes into the third quarter, I don't think the expectation is that they're going to be on the bench for the remaining of the game.
Yeah, welcome to the team you got to get right today. You just got to get it right, whether you're going to be bullish on them or, it's hard not to like everybody up and down this entire roster. I will say Craig and Shamet, I feel like are very, very thin at 14% that they're kind of standing out as right now. But if you mix them into lineups, I mean, they're 3K and 3,400. That's an all right spot to land. But for me, the interest really started in, I was surprised that people were as low as on Campaign coming into this. Campaign is like maybe one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Campaign going back to last year, I mean, he's going to play mop-up duty. This is a 14-point spread. And playing alongside Chris Paul, he's been pretty effective still, over a fantasy point per minute player, 1.07 on the season in all situations. Oh, sorry. There's like no way about it. I just need to absolutely get to as much Campaign as possible. Now, Cameron Johnson is the most terrifying guy on this entire slate. He's right now at 27.6%. We have him projected for 29 minutes. I'm going to be shorting that. There's no way that I'm going to play Cameron Johnson. This is his second game back. I don't really know what to take out of an 8-point loss to Memphis there with Booker there. Can Cameron Johnson play upwards of 29 minutes? Maybe he can, but this was a right quad contusion that he had for the injury. He's just very, very high owned for a guy that's very shot dependent. Whenever shot dependent guys are going to garner this kind of attention, they almost feel like auto fades to me, and I'll live with the result of it. I am much more inclined to jam a Cameron Payne at 4,700 than a 4,600 Cameron Johnson.
Awesome, brother. I love it, man. Just very succinct. You got it all in there. There's nothing really left to scrape.
No. JaVale McGee. JaVale McGee.
You mentioned McGee.
Yeah, I talked about him earlier. No, well, I just wanted to just recap that JaVale McGee is one of the best plays on the slate. But
even though he's like 52%.
There are so many, but there are so many good center plays. I mean, we talked about Bam Adebayo. We're going to have OKC value that could exist there. Like, not that SAR is this clear-cut priority, but I mean, he's so cheap, and it's so hard to look at the center position where you have Moses Brown. I already talked about him. We have an opportunity to roster Mitchell Robinson, who I absolutely love for tournaments. Cat against Houston. I mean, come on. There are so many good centers to get to that I find it hard to say that I want to just play 100% of McGee. If you wanted to take that approach, sounds great. But we've seen enough times where Bismack Biyombo got an increased amount of run. He had 3 starts, 29, 29, 22. I don't even think it's a foregone conclusion. We don't have that starting lineup here yet. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that JaVale McGee starts here. So I will say Bismack Biyombo at 3K, definitely somebody to have on your radar. He's just at 11%. I could see where that gap kind of slims a little bit. In the event that Biyombo starts, I think I could project him around 26 minutes. McGee has been more comfortable coming off the bench pretty much his entire career. So I'm at least on the lookout for that. That doesn't take away from the fact that McGee can smash in 18, 20 minutes and just break this slate, but he's going to be crazy popular. Just be watching out for that starting lineup.
Yeah, I was just looking on FanDuel, how much it drops significantly, right? I mean, DraftKings, he's right there at the top, but FanDuel, how much more viable is he of an option, if at all?
No, well, FanDuel, you're playing one center, and if we get Joel Embiid, I'm going to find it very difficult.
Let's assume Embiid's out. Sorry.
If we assume Embiid's out, then I think that McGee is going to become much, much more appealing to me. But we still have to talk about the fact that he's 3,600 and you have Bismack Biyombo that's going to be, a fraction of the ownership coming into it. Now, it's a pretty easy swap, and it's pretty easy to make that work. If you need to. 4K, we're going to have a ton of OKC exposure, as gross as that is to say out loud. We're going to have late game exposure. We just got news that Otto Porter is going to be joining Klay Thompson being out. So we might have some opportunities to roster. I was just kind of fixing some of my Golden State stuff as we're going along. I'm going to have a lot more interest in a guy like Kuminga now, but looking at somebody like JaVale McGee, I mean, he's no doubt in the starting spot, just an absolute smash. But Bismack Biyombo is not a write-off. I will find that $400 to get to some shares of him out of 150.
All right, let's look at the Thunder as much as you can here. I don't know. Jalen's popping up there. I'm looking to see if there's anybody else really. Theo's popping up here. Anybody else here? Aaron Wiggins, not to be confused, right? There's some options.
I mean, this team is
Lindy
continuing.
Waters.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
You
Pokashevsky news is the biggest piece. So the Pokashevsky news, it's just so weird to say, but it's just such a gigantic piece. I mean, yeah, Joel Embiid matters big time, but this is just the clear cut for me spot that I would want to get to the absolute most outside of DeJounte Murray being out and then just playing all the Trey Jones and all the land. Friday was a strange slate because the best piece of value came out and made it impossible. It came out 2 minutes after the 8 p.m. Eastern time lock of games, and Trey Jones would have been the highest owned player on the slate. He will be my highest exposed player if we get the opportunity to play him and DeJounte Murray's out. I'm going to overload on some of this OKC stuff in anticipation of DeJounte Murray. I mean, the Spurs need to keep winning basketball games. They're going to get more information. They have the tiebreaker against the Lakers. I'm going to be watching that Lakers game to kind of see what needs to happen there, because if the Lakers somehow win this Denver game, you have the opportunity for DeJounte Murray to play and kind of try to ice this down against Portland. I think he's more inclined to play in that spot. They're 14-point favorites, whether he plays or not still. Trey Jones is a very serviceable backup. I know I'm looking ahead to it, but I'm just looking at getting to more of those Spurs pieces and more of these OKC pieces than what the field currently has. We talked about Roby. I think Roby, absent Pokashevsky, becomes just a slam dunk at 6,800, which is just the dumbest thing I've ever said out loud. But they just can play him prolonged minutes. There's really nobody else that is going to be able to be on the floor outside of Olivier Sarr, and they've played a lot of minutes alongside each other. So I have no hesitation firing this team up in bulk now. Their prices are out of control in a number of these spots. And Pokashevsky, if he does play, is the guy I want to get to more than anybody else on the team. He's the 5th most positively leveraged play on DK. Roby is 3rd. Jalen Horde is 2nd. I mean, we're talking about a team that is just going under projected by the rest of the field. So not that you need to play them 35% or 40% throughout all your lineups, but Jalen Horde, Isaiah Roby, Pokashevsky, if he plays, it's just such a shorthanded team that it's impossible for me to get away being over the field on all of them, considering they're all sub 10%.
It's going to be crazy if OKC or Portland, we can shift to the Blazers here. If one of these two or both of these teams find a way to stay in this game or even shock the world, right? Especially the Thunder, although the Suns are down, not that it truly matters against that OKC team. But you get my point, is that so many of these guys are so low owned, and the same thing you're going to get on the Blazers side here, where the reality is, Greg Brown at 4,400 at that 4-5 spot on DK is going to be the one guy that people are getting to really the most. And that's at like an 8-9% clip. So if you're building 150 tonight, are you looking to maybe counter and take advantage of that small percentage? We talked about OKC. Could you apply that strategy also to Portland? Again, this is not a cash lineup you're building by any means, but if you're expanding out into the universe, could you counter that field? And maybe if it's Portland in this case, hanging on, do something.
Yeah, this is a weird game to really kind of talk about as it stands right now, mainly because I think everybody got new 10-day contracts. I maybe not. I know that a number of them expired. So I'm just saying, be very aware.
Two-way contracts, I think.
Yeah, a lot of two-way contracts, a lot of weird things that were happening earlier in the day with that. As it stands right now, I'm assuming that Drew Eubanks and all these guys are playing. And here's the major problem with getting to them is all their prices are just inflated on a slate where there's better value that exists. And we've been playing a lot of these guys when they were 3-4K, but now Greg Brown, 4,400, he's clear cut the best play on the team, but it's also just not a priority. If you landed on nothing from this team, I wouldn't really blame you. Looking over at the FanDuel side, so that was DraftKings specifically. On the FanDuel side, Drew Eubanks is definitely somebody you want to get to at 3,700, power forward only. So that's kind of that. I would say the one guy that I wouldn't want to write off no matter what, CJ Ellaby. He's small forward, kind of goes in that bucket of all these guys, but he's been playing mid-30s minutes in some of these punt type games. I don't really hate landing on a number of lineups with him. Chris Dunn really isn't that appealing, splitting minutes with Brandon Williams, and it's just kind of really diluted between those two. I'm not really liking landing on either of them, especially at Brandon Williams' $7,100 tag on FanDuel, but Ellaby, I think, at least warrants getting to a couple lineups of, but God, Greg Brown, and then moving on.
Yeah, it makes sense. And we will as well. Spurs, 230. 230. By the way, all-time Lindy's. Give me your 5 all-time Lindy's.
Well, I mean, you got to start elindy4, right? That's me, right? Is that what it is? We start with me. My username.
Yeah,
no,
well,
that's terrible.
Are you stretching the category?
Lucky Lindy. Lucky Lindy is one. That's the Lindy power rankings. Lindy Waters, he's maybe known as the third in his household. He's about the 3,000th Lindy.
Yeah, he doesn't make the top 5 Lindys.
No.
He's not on your Mount Rushmore of Lindys.
Yeah, Charles Lindbergh. I mean, that's got to be.
No, but again, Lindy, like nobody called Charles Lindbergh Lindy. All right, let's stop there. All right,
they called him Lucky Lindy, right? Wasn't that the nickname?
No, I don't think he was that lucky when it all ended, right?
It was dark.
So no, this is not nicknames. All right, this is just actual all-time Lindys, and no, not Liddy either. All right, so San Antonio 230 total.
Eric Lindros, top 3 for you. How about that? No, we're not going to give Lindros your Philadelphia Flyers own.
Nobody called Lindros Lindy. Or if they did, it was like somebody on his team did it when they were out drinking. It wasn't like a fan thing. Lindy. Yeah, Lindy. So, all right. No, Lindy Lane. There you go. So 230 here. You're going to have to attack the Spurs. If you don't like anybody on the Blazers outside of Brown, you're going to have to have a
So Emac just sent me an anecdote, which is great, just to kind of double check. I was just saying that there was some wonky stuff that was floating around about it. And that kind of happens this time of year. But Emac, shout out to Emac 2024. Eubanks and Dunn, they're going to finish the season on hardship deals. So they're just fine. They're going to be playing. We don't have to be going there.
Got it. A good clarification. Because, somebody was in the middle of typing that, right? About to call you out on.
There's a lot of other things going on. I mean, this Golden State rotation is not going to be fun. Like, I don't really know.
You have to talk about San Antonio. That's on the
board absolutely. Now. The best play on the slate is Trey Jones if DeJounte Murray sits. Period. End of story. Full stop. 3,700 for him. He is the automatic guy that I want to get to the absolute most of. I said on Friday, if that news had come out before lock that DeJounte Murray was going to be out, like he sat out of the middle of nowhere with a non-COVID illness, Trey Jones at 3,700 would have been the play of the slate. On FanDuel, he's 3,700. He is the play of the slate. You need to find ways and have opportunities to know that if DeJounte Murray sits, which I think is more likely than not, if the Lakers end up winning, or if the Lakers end up losing that game, just because they'll be, a game and a half up playing tonight. They're already 14-point favorites. I think they're just fine playing this iteration of the Portland Trailblazers without DeJounte Murray. I'm just going to be on high alert for that. I'm going to get to as much Trey Jones as I can humanly possibly stomach. In the event that DeJounte Murray plays, you need to find paths onto him, which, just by bolstering some CJ McCollum or Paul George or doing things that, if you get stuck playing him, sweet. On DK at 11-2, I don't think you need to straight out prioritize him, but there's only so many limited spend ups that we have on a slate like this. So you need to definitely find paths to get to him. I mean, if Embiid plays, he's going to be somebody that should be very high owned. DeJounte Murray kind of fits into that bucket as well. There's just so limited, a limited amount of spend ups, and you get the opportunity on FanDuel to play him at shooting guard. It's kind of all systems go that DeJounte Murray would be one of the highest owned players in my lineups if he ends up playing, just like Trey Jones would be one of the highest owned players or the highest owned player on my lineups in the event that he sits.
Anybody that you want to target, and again, maybe this is just if you're building a bunch tonight, if you're looking at that 150 tonight, but is there anybody that you wanted to target simply because of the anticipated line and total, which just screams absolute blowout tonight?
Yeah, it does, but you get DeJounte Murray off. Jakob Poeltl, 6,700, would see increased rates across the board and have to be somebody. He's already a 1.17 fantasy point per minute player on the season, and I think he has to be looked at going up against Drew Eubanks, his former running mate. Not that they ever shared a floor together. He was his direct backup there in San Antonio, but Jakob Poeltl, I would want to get over on 8.7% on him too. Pretty much just kind of getting to all of these other centers that have massive kind of upside and hoping that something wonky happens with that Phoenix Suns center rotation. Maybe Mcgee doesn't start and just people end up on more Biyombo or something in that regard. And I can just play all these other massive upside guys. But he's not a priority by any means. I would say in the event that DeJounte Murray sits, you can talk about a Keldon Johnson, 6,900. Yep. He's already garnering quite a bit of attention with him in there. On DK, I don't really like him as a play as it stands right now, but if you have no DeJounte Murray there. 7,300 on FanDuel would even come into the realm of playable for me. We've seen massive upside from Zach Collins in relief duty. If you played the blowout narrative, he's at least a guy who's a phenomenal fantasy point per minute guy going back to his Portland days. 1.08 here on his short season. He's only been active now for like a month and a half now, since February 4th. So actually 2 months now total that he's been back in this lineup. At least if you take a shot with somebody like that at, sub 1%, you know that if there's a blowout here, he's going to probably smash.
By the way, a couple of great answers, and this is why the chat is undefeated. Neil Lindy McDaniel, 21-year-old Major League Baseball pitcher. Lindy Infante. Now, this is an example of how you can use nickname because Jalindo, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Infante was not referred to that. He was referred to Lindy. So that's like the normal name in which he referred to. And then how about Rodney Dangerfield back to school with the triple Lindy? That might be before both of y'all times
my
right
arm.
there.
Oh,
I get no respect. All right, so
that was pretty good. That was pretty good. That was better. That was better than mine.
Minnesota is a 13-point road favorite at Houston. No wood up front, all right? So you can't play around with that. 243.5 on a total, though. Go ahead. You can have fun. I throw stuff out there for you.
No, it was funny to me. You said wood. There's no wood. I'll show you the wood.
I'm doing the show for you. You know that. Not for anybody else. Yeah, Caleb, appreciate that, right? Like the video, please.
Yeah, like the damn video. Oh, Loco, happy birthday. Tell Negro Loco in the chat. My guy.
Is that right?
Birthday festivities this weekend. I saw that on the old twitter.com. Shout out to our news god.
Oh,
show
my
some
goodness.
respect.
Happy birthday.
He might vault to the top of the Moses board if he wants to be known as such.
If he would like to change his name
Parting
to
the sea. He missed that part.
El Negro Moses, you're saying that he would then be the top Moses?
Yes, he would. Yeah,
okay.
Today, for sure.
Happy birthday, news god. Appreciate all you do. Absolutely. Guys made more money for people on here than everybody but Alex, Adam, and like a top guy. Not you, though. He's made more people money than you.
Thanks, Eitan. Yeah.
I haven't made anybody money, so that's the retort. That's what you should have said.
I'm gonna smash his over 7 threes, Pratt. Jordan Poole's gonna get all Harris. Volume.
Oh my goodness. Minnesota minus 13. Here we go. On the road at Houston. A lot of opportunity here. Why? Because it's the highest total on the board. So regardless of what's happening with Houston, which we'll cover in a second here, even if you do like this to be a 13 to 15 point smashing here, there is an expectation this thing's going to be super high scoring. So let's start with the Wolves. How long they'll be out there on the floor, we don't necessarily know, but our projections have some guys as expected pretty high and usual suspects here, right? Cat, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, all up there in that top 5 to 8 selections as far as ownership.
Yeah, so we got Malik Beasley out, which, again, is a guy that has randomly been playing, mid-20s minutes here. And I think not that it opens up anything for these other ancillary guys, but I do think Patrick Beverley has a pretty secure role. I'm starting with him because we know the big three, and I'll get to them and kind of cover that in depth. But just in the absence of Malik Beasley, I think you can take some shots on going to Beverley. He's sub 5K. Can obviously get there in stocks, and he had 6 steals last time out. That's the kind of stuff that he'll do ridiculously. There's actual 40-point upside there, sub 5K, which is really all that I'm looking for on these late season NBA slates. And so I think there's some viability in landing on him, especially 4,600 on FanDuel with those aforementioned stocks, 12.7%. I'm happy to land on him. The rest of these guys, I had been playing some Jared Vanderbilt, and I think you still can, considering he's only 3%. Some of these second unit runs, like Jared Vanderbilt, might see some more usage absent. He obviously is a starter, but absent Malik Beasley, there's going to be some increased opportunity for Jared Vanderbilt. He's a decent enough fantasy point per minute producer, 0.95 on FanDuel for the season. I'm all right landing on some of him, just over the field on it. But then the rest of the team is right off besides those big three. Now, D'Angelo Russell has been a problem for me on FanDuel, and he will continue to be a problem for me today. He's up to 37.7% ownership, but he is 5,300. This is a guy who's north of 1.05 FanDuel points per minute player on the season. And there's no Malik Beasley that's going to be there. There's going to be some staggered rotations where you're going to get Anthony Edwards, two of the three. It's hard to believe you'll ever get Just one of them isolated on the floor, you're probably going to have 2 of 3 of him, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell on the floor together. I find it hard to believe that he's not one of the best plays on the FanDuel slate as a result of it. I'm going to still be over that number for the however many slate in a row as his price keeps plummeting. 6,700. I don't think you have to take that shot at 18% on DraftKings. I'll probably just get my FanDuel exposure and move on with my day. But then Karl Anthony Towns, I think, is one of the best spend ups, if not the best spend up, in the absence of Joel Embiid on this entire slate. He's 9,600. This is a front court of Şengün and nobody else. Bruno Fernando. Best of luck to these guys trying to slow down Cat to do whatever he wants. Yeah, they're a 13-point dog. Houston is at home against Minnesota, and the main reason why Karl Anthony Towns is playing unbelievable basketball throughout this entire season. I know the fantasy outcomes haven't been what you've wanted in the last week and a half, but that can kind of be thrown out the window when you get a date with Houston. I think he's going to just be a massive priority for me.
All right, so how much do you really want to move on outside of Şengün, what you mentioned there? Is there anybody else? We've got these other 2 games we'll get to. You mentioned the Warriors. Yeah. There's some things happening there, so I want to leave some time to kind of expand on that, and that's kind of me being nice, like, come on, what the hell more do you want here?
Yeah, Anthony Edwards is more. So I'm going to finish Minnesota quick. Anthony Edwards is the last guy. Oh, yeah. No, Anthony Edwards was the last guy. I think he's probably on DK 7,700. He's been playing more Anthony Edwards-esque basketball here of late. It's also nice to know Cat. He's the guy who's going to see the bench more than likely in some of these blowouts and, 13-point dog at home. Houston is that Minnesota. They go out there. Anthony Edwards is going to be closing some of these games still, just being the one guy between him, Russell, and Cat as the young guy who just goes out and solidifies that game. So I think there's some extra run there. I'm not going to build any kind of a group to omit him alongside Russell or Karl Anthony Towns, but I might hand build a couple just to kind of isolate him as the only Minnesota Timberwolf in this game.
All right. We have a super chat here from Jake. Mm-hmm. So just breeze through Houston and we can spend a minute or so on Jake's question.
Yeah. Brian Underwood, not for Prince here. That's not going to be for me. Jake Lindland, 3 must plays, single bullet in DK 555. All right. I'm not going to put JaVale McGee as a must play, mainly because I don't even know if he starts here in this spot. I think he's a phenomenal play. I think his ownership in a 555, if he's going to be 75% owned and something like that, I am willing to get away. If I were playing in that today, that would kind of be my approach because of how strong the center position is. I understand he's projecting out for 9x at the moment. I would even find a way to kind of swap and find a way onto like a Bismack Biyombo in the event that he starts, but the field is going to be the sharpest in a contest like that. So I think a lot of people will find that pivot. I will call my priorities on DK specifically. I'll put Karl Anthony Towns in there. I think he's going to be a priority for me today as a primary spend up. If Joel Embiid's out, James Harden is an absolute smash. You just wanted to say Moses, didn't you?
Moses Brown. You talked a lot about him. I just didn't know.
And then the guy that we're going to get to later, Jordan Poole, absent Klay Thompson, is just an absolute priority for me.
Well, why don't we get to Jordan Poole? You mentioned Şengün, right? Was there anybody else that you're desperately trying to get to on Houston in our 7 minutes remaining?
I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. has shown some massive upside. I think on FanDuel, on different slates, I mean, Jae'Sean Tate continues to be 4,100 in that starting group. There's just not a lot of usage to go around when you're sharing a floor with Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green. KJ Martin's 3,700 here as well. If this game gets wonky, there's an opportunity for him to play well. But I will say the one guy that I want to get to on FanDuel in some lineups where I'm not going to have Timberwolves or I think this game could blow out is Josh Christopher. He's been playing a surprising number of minutes, and we've seen him get up to like 30, 24 minutes in 2 of his last 3. He is a willing participant in the shooting department. He kind of falls into the vein of like a Terrence Ross, where with the Magic, where when Terrence Ross was relevant like a year or 2 ago, or there's been some times this year where he was still relevant, but you know that those lineups are dead immediately if he doesn't come out and start knocking down shots. But in the event that he gets hot, the guy has 40+ point upside. He can be a baller from time to time. So I think mixing some Josh Christopher, 4,500 over on the FanDuel slate. And then on DraftKings, he's 4,600, a little less appealing, but I still think I might get to a couple shares of him.
All right, brother, we've got 2 games left here. Warriors at Kings. And let's just look as much as Jordan Poole is going to be the story here, as you mentioned with Klay out. So how much do you really find yourself with Poole? And then we can kind of look at anybody else really in this game overall that you like.
Yeah, I mean, Golden State is very relevant when you also get Otto Porter off the floor here. That's a big change. He's been playing huge minutes for this team in relief duty. And I don't know if necessarily people are noticing that, but he's played over 26 minutes in 5 of his last 6, all off the bench. That opens up minutes for Jonathan Kuminga. Okay, there we go. I just refreshed 18.7%. I knew there would be some ownership that got there. Andrew Wiggins is probably one of the more uncomfortable chalk plays over on FanDuel, and I still think you kind of have to be looking his direction. It's just such a cheap number at 5,400. If you're playing cash, he's just a fundamental core play that you're putting into lineups there. But no doubt about it, my favorite play, shouldn't surprise anybody, is Jordan Poole here. The guy's been incredible. He's been kind of filling that two-man game that Draymond Green likes to play with Steph. Jordan Poole is just showing out right now. And, on Odd Shopper, I think one of the ways that I will kind of hedge some of my exposure, the under on 4.5 3-pointers, it has a 46% expected ROI right now. It is so rare for me to see something north of 40% in terms of expected ROI that you just kind of have to go there and bet that under. But I will kind of supplant that with a bunch of DFS ownership because I think Jordan Poole, 8,100, is just massively underpriced. We are seeing some unbelievable fantasy outcomes out of the guy. If you just click on his box score, I know a lot of people like to do that. It's just bright green on the left side of the screen on Fantasy Cruncher. He's one of the best plays, if not the best play at the point guard position on this entire slate. And I'm going to have tons of him, and I think you should too.
So there's a question that's pending on the chat that we need to get to before we get out of here. Anything on Sacramento last night? So it is the second leg. Anything that you want to touch here?
Not really. I mean, Sacramento, they had been appealing. This is, only a 5-point spread here. And Davion Mitchell continues to be a guy you can get to. 7,200. I don't know why his price just went down on FanDuel again. It's just kind of the eternal thing with FanDuel is that you're going to have mid-range plays as well that are just underpriced. On DraftKings, I mean, I just don't really know what to say about this rotation. I think everybody's out of play. You don't really have to take any of those shots. But considering he's 7,200 over on FanDuel, he's the one play that I really want to get to in bulk. Damian Jones continues to be cheap, 5,500 on the FanDuel slate. But on DraftKings specifically, I think they're a complete fade. I think I'll have a single share of anybody on this entire team. Just overpriced. They've been adjusted. I mean, you have a 6,600 Damian Jones, so completely Xing him out there. But Trey Lyles, you can sprinkle into some lineups as well, projects out pretty decently for us on FanDuel. Just kind of the story of two sites. We have that with a number of teams today. FanDuel, this is probably the one where you just get all your Sacramento exposure over there.
Let's look at the Pelicans and Clippers here, and you can even whittle it down if you want to guys that are jumping out by all means, because we're going to have some options on both sides, especially as Paul George continues to kind of reinsert himself in here by all means. So if you're looking at Reggie Jackson, if you're looking at somebody on the Clipper side, or if it's just more of, taking advantage maybe of a short dog here with the Pelicans, but clearly you've got a decent total that you could work with. So it's not like there's an expectation of a low scoring slugfest by any means between these two teams.
Well, here's
even
the
Valenciunis.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So there's one team that has a lot to play for. That is the Pelicans. There's one team that pretty much has nothing to play for, and that is the Clippers. Other than getting acclimated to having Paul George back in this rotation, the Clippers are 4 games up right now on the Pelicans in the standings. But the Pelicans, they want to keep that number 9. You want to have home court against San Antonio. You want to kind of lock that up here in this spot or against the Lakers. Regardless, you want to keep winning basketball games. This is still a must-win kind of a spot here for the Pellies. So they're going to be all hands on deck. My favorite tournament play, and I've kind of been saving him for last here at the center position, is Jonas Valenciunis. We've seen a massive, and I mean massive, increase to his minutes. Guillermo Hernan-Gomez is completely out of the center rotation here. And it has been massive minutes for Jonas Valenciunis. He's always been a phenomenal fantasy point per minute guy, 1.3 on the entire season. He's 8,600, which maybe makes people shy away. And that's, he's up to 10.8%, which is kind of surprising over on DK. But if they're seeing what I'm seeing, 37, 35, 38 minutes in these must-win kind of scenarios, he doesn't even need major usage to be relevant, can get there in terms of blocks. Obviously, a phenomenal rebounder of the basketball. CJ McCollum, an overall net negative when it comes to rebounding the basketball, not going to really affect any of his rates there. Brandon Ingram back into the mix as well. You have to remember, Josh Hart was always the guy that was just soaking up rebounds there in that starting unit when it was Brandon Ingram, Devontae Graham and such. Now you get Ingram and McCollum out there. Jonas Valanciunas' rebound rate is just going to be something that I'm paying attention to constantly here, because I think there's a massive opportunity for him to break slates going forward. 83 on FanDuel, 8,300 on FanDuel. If I'm getting away from punting or going up to Joel Embiid, I want to land on some Jonas Valanciunas.
Real quick, best showdown captain for the Pels Clippers, Reggie Jackson, 6,800 on DK. You running with that?
No, I'm not really sure. I don't think I have a single play from this entire team that I really want to get to. I know Reggie Jackson played 40 minutes against Chicago in that loss. I don't really see that being something that they're going to do going forward here. Once again, they are kind of locked into their positioning. I don't really find any kind of appeal to getting to any Clippers other than like to get contrarian. Paul George is somebody who has massive upside and is a 1.3 fantasy point per minute producer. But why do you want to land on him at 9,900 when you can land on Embiid if he's there, Cat if he's there, games that actually matter to other teams?
Makes sense, brother. At Eric Lindquist on Twitter, at Shander Show for me. And next week, your all-time Ezekiels. All right? I want 5 all-time Ezekiels.
That's all I'll think about in Augusta. That's all I'll do.
It'll pop up at some point. It'll pop up in conversation. Somebody will reference Ezekiel Elliott, and you'll be like, oh, okay, he's number 3 on my Zeeks. Thanks, Jordan, for producing. He's not going anywhere. Don't go anywhere either. Emac and Terry are here live before lock. You'll get your Embiid news and everything else you have for them. So appreciate you all hanging with us. Again, hit that thumbs up button, please. They're going to remind you to do the same, so you might as well get it done right now if you haven't already. We'll see you next week.
Awesemo, here we go. It's your old pal Emac coming to you on an early Sunday evening here as we have another 6 o'clock main slate lock, at least on DraftKings and FanDuel. Over on Yahoo, they will be locking at 7 o'clock, going with the 6-game main slate. We, of course, are brought to you by Odd Shopper. Today, we will be going by position. The show just before us went game by game, and much to Terry's chagrin, we're cutting this bad boy off at like 6:25 instead of 6. Jordan.
Oh, yeah, we're going the extra half hour just for the hell of it. Just got to shoehorn that in.
He's going to have to play us out. I heard one of the shows earlier this week. I think it was Jordan that was producing. They had to play the music out to get rid of. I think it was an Oscar speech.
I like it.
But we'll try.
We'll just go until Jordan cuts us off and forces.
Yes.
Our problem is that
Jordan would be savvy enough to just put a freeze frame picture of himself looking down. He would cut the broadcast, and you and I would just be in a Zoom, assuming we were broadcasting. So.
That's true too.
Oh, good times, good times. All right. Well, what's not good times? Well, they are good times.
This
NBA. Late season, in-game tanking is now a thing. People getting sick just before or just after lock can be a thing. 10-day contracts that become unlimited essentially have become a thing for Portland. I was reading up on that earlier. So we were concerned today because on the earlier show, I think it was Josh that brought it up, mentioned that Drew Eubanks and Chris Dunn, their contract expired technically yesterday, their 10-day contract. And normally, because you are less than 10 days till the end of the season, you're not allowed to sign another contract, some archaic rule. Well, this year, because of all the injuries, because of COVID, et cetera, they've sort of relaxed some of those 10-day contract rules, and they've created something, because you used to could sign 2 with the team, and if they wanted you for a third one, it was guaranteed for the rest of the year. But with COVID and other stuff, they sort of relaxed those. And then they also have something called, of course,
had they not changed that, they wouldn't have ended up in this situation. They would have just been on the team. So
correct.
It was probably because they changed that they have to do this.
Yeah. So ultimately, if you have more than 4 players out and they will continue to miss multiple games, whoever's judgment that is, that qualifies you for hardship. So it's a disaster of a rule. But now we know it.
If your team is like Portland and would not have been seeded, would have been like an NIT team if they were in the NCAA, then yes, you can sign hardship contracts. That should be the rule.
Yes. So someone's saying Yahoo does lock at 7 today. They've excluded the first 2 games. I see someone mentioning that in chat. So there we go.
Take your word for it.
They pushed their. Well, I write the article in front of the paywall.
I know you do. That's why I'll take your word for it.
As do you. Let's drop the link in there and we'll get to running here on this. There's the free link to the DFS building blocks article. I'm also going to drop in the link. Somebody writes this great NBA optimizer picks article every day as well. That would be one. Team McBee, free articles there in front of the paywall. Yeah, not a bad deal. Not a bad deal. Malakar says he likes the shirt. I think I've showed this before. It's the oldometer. See, it's turning over to 50.
You sent me that when you, I think when you got it, when you returned 50, you sent me a picture of you in that shirt.
Yes, this is the Jordan Klein phone picture, allegedly. It's his background of his phone, me wearing the oldometer picture. Do I have to get a new one when I turn 51?
Vitamin Donuts myself.
Oh, nice.
Vitamin Donuts, the souvenir from the National Archives in Washington, D.C. A great place to visit if you find yourself in Washington, D.C. with a few hours to kill. Very interesting stuff in there.
Absolutely. Well, let's hit on a few of the injuries and we'll go through this by position, sort of starting here with, let me refresh this because we've got games going on right now. We've got our early.
Andy Kaufman came up in the last show. Can't we talk about whether the Jerry Lawler, Andy Kaufman slap was a better slap than the Will Smith, Chris Rock slap? Can't we just waste time? Do we have to talk about this ugly, atrocious, ridiculous slate?
We have to, because that's what the chat would like.
Fine.
So we will. But hit those likes. Get us up to 300. We've got, 1,300 people watching? Only 236 likes? Come on. Help us out. All right. Joel Embiid, questionable. First game of the night for this particular slate. We should have the answer if he's going to sit or not. Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, both out. The Knicks resting everybody at this point, or those who are injured are not coming back, but they do still have RJ Barrett as a feature play. Obi Toppin it will look good with Julius Randle down for the rest of the season. Robinson is solid depending on how many fouls he accrues early on, but going against Orlando, the masters of the in-game tank, they are going with Ignas Brazdeikis is starting tonight.
Revenge game for Iggy.
Oh, was he a former Knickerbocker?
He was a former Knickerbocker for a couple of like a year or two. I think he was a second round pick. Igneous Brazdeikis.
Interesting. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, not really overly capable 3-and-D kind of a guy was the idea when they took him in the second round, but not really much of a standout player, as evidenced by the fact that he's now a bench warmer for the Magic.
All right. Well, Wendell Carter, I don't think we're going to see him for the rest of the season, but he is officially out tonight still. So is Franz Wagner. So that game is just kind of a mess. These first two games, I'm not going to exclude them from my player pool, but if we have to bail out because you know what, I'm scrambling just before lock, I'm okay not playing anybody in this game. Maybe a little less than perfect, but considering that Minnesota-Houston game is on tap, we did get word that Malik Beasley is out. Christian Wood has been shut down for the season. Alperen Şengün missed the last game, might have been the last two games actually, with lower leg injury. He should be back. I think he will kind of have a soft minutes cap in that 26 to 28 range. They don't seem to want to push him, so he is going to be a good play, but we'll want to be careful with our assumptions on those minutes. Portland, as we mentioned, they've pretty much shut everybody down. DeJounte Murray, the question mark in that game. Portland is underdogs by 14.5. San Antonio has a pretty good chance of making the play-in game here, especially with the Lakers just in a complete tailspin. At this point, they're playing tonight. That may have some impact on if they play Murray or not. We'll have to wait and see. Miami sitting Jimmy Butler, Dwayne Dedmon, and Gabe Vincent. Looks like Toronto's rolling out everybody that they should. Phoenix gets rather interesting. They are resting Devin Booker, Jay Crowder, and DeAndre Ayton, whose name is not there. Chris Paul. We'll start off our guard talk with that as we loop back in just a second. Golden State, no Klay Thompson, no Andre Iguodala. They played last night. Steph Curry out until the playoffs, if he's even able to return then. Otto Porter out as well. Sacramento is effectively shut down De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, so we'll be seeing a lot of Davion Mitchell in this matchup. Of course, with all of those key players out for Golden State, their defense not the same as what it is when they have their full complement of players. And then last but not least, I'm sure the Clippers will come up with some way to screw us in the last game of the night. Roll the dice, pick a name, that'll be the person who sits. Aside from that, currently everybody who was out their last couple games, they're all available now. Did I miss anything?
How bad is Oklahoma City that with a starting lineup of Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and JaVale McGee, Phoenix is still favored by 14 points?
It's
bonkers.
It's just absolutely brutal. It's like OKC is there. Then the people that are, like, yeah, I really believe half their people are hurt, like Beasley or Pokusevski or something. It's like, no, you're not sick. They're trying to lose. And somehow,
let's remember, this team paid Al Horford to sit out the entire second half of last year just because they wanted to suck. So, I mean, yeah, that's what they do.
Good times. So we're going to start off with the Suns here. Chris Paul, I don't think is a must play. I will be shocked if he plays more than 20-25 minutes tonight. I think the cap is probably 30. Phoenix has already clinched the best record in the league. There's literally nothing to play for here. You got to figure if he is going out there, he's going to get double-digit assists because he's leading the league in assists. He would basically lock up his fifth career assist title. So looking at Odd Shopper, you might want to check out what his over is on assists, and you can parlay that on some same-game parlays with his under in points, because I think he'll be out there facilitating, maybe dropping a couple threes, but I have a hard time seeing him get usually his over-under on points is about 16 on the alternate line. So I think that's interesting. So there's our Odd Shopper sponsor of the show bet. What do you think of Chris Paul? And then while we're here, let's talk about JaVale McGee as well. We'll bookend this one and then we'll go by position.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good starting point overall. I think it's an important spot, particularly the McGee side of things. I think Chris Paul's at least interesting here. We've got him projected for 29.9 minutes, call it a 30-minute night. He's averaged 33.7 over the last 3 games. He's played the last 4 straight, 4 back. He played a 30-minute night, but then it was 32, 33, 36. So I'm not totally concerned that they're going to cut him down dramatically to like a 24, 26 minute night. I think 30 is a fair expectation. And I think at 8,200 on DK, 8,000 on FanDuel, he's at least slate relevant if he's seeing that 30 minutes. We've got him at 30 minutes, 21% optimal on FanDuel, a little less optimal on the DK slate, 13.5% optimal. What I do like about him though, on DK, he's only owned 11.6% of the time. Even if I thought Chris Paul was only going to play 24, 26 minutes, I think I might still take a couple tournament shots on him at that level just because nobody else is going to be there. And you would have that upside. He could rack up a good handful of assists, a few points, and give you a reasonable score on a slate like this where there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of lousy players that people are going to be rostering. I think just on sheer virtue of who he is at that median level, even, he could put up a slate relevant score when nobody's on him. So I don't want to totally discount him. I'm not as concerned about the minutes, especially where we've got him projected. I think he's definitely on the board. McGee is the dominant play of the day. 3,800 on DK. He should be in basically every DraftKings lineup at either the center or the utility spot. You've got a ton of flexibility to roster him alongside one of the other prime centers like Karl Anthony Towns. Use the util spot, and then you can still get to guys like Draymond and these other big front court names by putting them in the power forward spot. So you can build a really nice little core on DK around some of the most frequently optimal big men. On FanDuel, it's a little different. He's 21.5% optimal. We've got the singular center problem that we always get. So he's a blocker to Towns. He's a blocker to Embiid. You do still have a lot of flexibility around the power forward and center eligible guys where you can put them together, have it still make sense. What I want to target with McGee here is the boom score probability. The probability of hitting him hitting that salary adjusted required ceiling score, a tournament winning score, 82.5% on FanDuel, 78.62% on DK. Those are monstrous numbers. This guy just belongs in a lot of lineups. I don't care how frequently he's owned. 22% on FanDuel is perfectly fine. 54% on DK. I'm totally willing to ride with that. I have no issues with the ownership. Lock JaVale McGee into your lineups. It's rare for me to say the word lock, but unless we get news about him not starting, not getting any kind of minutes, then that would be the only concern for him if we see Biyombo start over him. I don't think that's going to happen. I love the McGee spot here.
All right. Well, I'm going to take the other spot on this. I dislike JaVale McGee. I think it is a trap waiting to happen here from the upside that I think that it's capping us from. Decent play. I think he's far too popular tonight. The thing I want to lean on here is in 14 starts this season, he's averaged just under 21 minutes and 25.9 fantasy points. Can he rack up fantasy points in a hurry? Yes. Absolutely. Do they need the 34-year-old out there for more than 20 minutes tonight? Probably not. I'm more concerned that I would be giving up someone that could come up with more raw points or even a better cheap point per dollar play.
What do we have in that bucket though that we think is a potential sacrifice at 3,800? Are we talking DraftKings or FanDuel?
DraftKings, and I'm just talking the center spot. I think tonight there's plenty of centers to run 2 of them out there. I would like to, if the field's going to be at 50, I would like to be at 20 to 25.
But see, to me, that 3,800 is such a building block on this slate that I think you're not going to be able to get to the exposures that you want on some of these other guys while maintaining a high-end lineup in the other positions if you're not using McGee to get there. At 3,800, like unless you're making that direct pivot to Biyombo and you think that he's going to get that time, you're really running thin on viable options from that price tier that can give you that same kind of upside. That 78% boom score probability and 50%, 47.8% optimal lineup rate is based on a 24-minute projection. It's not like we're projecting him at 30 minutes here. So yeah, it could be a little bit fragile around those 4 minutes, but is JaVale going to still come out here and give us, if he plays, 20 instead of 24, is he going to give us 28 to 30 DK points instead of 35? I think that's still pretty likely. So maybe it cuts down the optimal rate, but I just don't see an alternative to pay for those other spots that you want. That's really his utility here, is in the purchasing power that he creates at other positions rather than in his individual, like whatever he scores is going to be fine tonight, basically, unless he gives you like a 0 and doesn't play.
Yep. So
that's the real back and forth of it for me.
Yes. So this is, I'm just playing the tournaments tonight.
Sure.
I will play somewhere between 130 and 100 and 130 lineups. So this is where I'm coming down. And I thought this was a nice linchpin leverage moment. So it is well worth the discussion because you can look to other players on this team, such as Landry Shamet, who I think is an outstanding play at 3K even. He was a DNP the last game, but Jalen Noel, even with Malik Beasley out and a chance of them running away with the game against Houston, Minnesota, that is, I think he's in the mix. Moses Brown, $700 more on DraftKings. But I do like him. Even one other guy. I'm looking at
let me throw this curveball into the mix. If we're talking about just off the top, no changes, no restrictions, optimal lineups run through Fantasy Cruncher. I got to 557 DraftKings lineups. Again, no restrictions, no randomness, just straight optimal, quote unquote optimal from the top projected down to 557th. JaVale McGee is in 100% of them. Cameron Payne is the second most frequently used player at 85%. Then it drops to Cam Johnson at 65%. That's the difference that McGee creates in these lineups for you. So there are at least, let's call it 600, because I'm sure you would have made 600 quote unquote optimal lineups before you get to one where JaVale McGee is not involved. That's too dicey to take him out of that kind of percent. I want to be over the field on McGee.
Okay. And this will be fun. We'll get to find out. And you know what? Even however it plays out doesn't mean one of us was right or one of us was wrong. It was just a 1-game sample size. So.
Absolutely.
Sort of like the Patty Mills, 1.75 points on DraftKings. Greg besmirching the good name of Max Strus, who had 19 DK points.
But that's a great point about like how to think about this, right? Because it's just a matter of taking different paths into the slate. It's not, like you said, neither one of us is right or wrong in that. It's just a different approach to lineups that presumably, like you're not going to be playing lineups that are going to be projecting 30 points off of the ones that I'm playing. We're shooting for the same basic level of pre-slate point production and expectation. It's just a different path of getting there. And the discussion becomes, okay, you can get to X amount of premium lineups by using McGee. You get to Y amount without using him. I think you get some more opportunities with him, but like you said, any one of those could be either the winner or a total dog lineup. So it's just a matter of positioning yourself the best way you possibly can with what you know ahead of the slate locking. And it doesn't make either one of us right or wrong.
All right. I'm going to do this in a New Jersey accent because this is a super chat for you. It's from Michael.
We don't have accents. Everybody else does.
Oh, okay. Well, I was trying to go for the Italian one. Hey, yo, T. Last week you gave me LaMelo. Who's your possible overlooked kid tonight on FD? Thanks.
Oh, hey, what are we talking about?
Everybody's a kid, right? That was too much kind of dice clay, I guess. Right?
There's a little dice in there, but it's all sprinkled in, especially if you're talking about like the boardwalk and these people that you see from, Jersey Shore back in the day and everything, because most of those people don't actually live in New Jersey. They're just there for the weekend. They're down from Staten Island and Brooklyn and everything. A bunch of bennies. That's what we call them. Anywho, if we're poking around on the FanDuel slate for a play like that, I wrote up Alperen Şengün today. I think he's getting a little bit overlooked. Decent opportunity. So he's a guy who's kind of on the board. I think I'm sorted to guard, so I don't have him direct. Oh, no, there he is. He was coming up 10th overall in terms of the optimal lineup appearance rate at 21%, pushing a 40% boom score probability, center and power forward eligible, so you can move him around a little bit. He's positively leveraged. He's lowish raw ownership, 20% owned, so it's not like he's totally getting overlooked, but I think he does fall into that bucket. Another guy who's potentially interesting, similar situation, just barely scraping by on positive leverage. But if we look at the raw ownership total on Brandon Ingram, only 17.3% raw ownership on him. That's kind of appealing. The last guy I'll throw into that bucket at just 14% raw ownership, a guy that I really like on this slate, is Draymond. I think he's getting overlooked on both slates. So that's probably the top answer. I would reverse those. I would say Draymond up top in terms of somebody being overlooked, and then Şengün. So Draymond would be my answer there. Glad I worked.
All right. Michael actually is from the Jersey Shore.
Hey, right on. Whereabouts, Mike? Middletown, Red Bank area here.
Oh, MP, what's up? All right, one more super chat here, and we'll start talking about the guards in a little more depth here. You've got, you don't know, JD says, happy Sunday, boys. Looking for a last man in FanDuel single entry, 6,500. He can maneuver between shooting guard and small forward. he already has Wiggins in that lineup.
Okay, shooting guard, small forward. Give me 1/2 a sec to just put those guys into this filter here. And 6,500 was our threshold?
6,500.
And he's got who in the lineup already?
He already has Wiggins.
He already has Wiggins. I mean, I really like the looks of D'Lo on this slate. I just hate his ownership. He's a -13 leverage play at this point. He is in my lineup because I think 5,300 is just too cheap for a 1.06 fantasy point per minute player in the situation that he's going to be in tonight. If you don't care about leverage, I like that answer, and it does buy you a little bit more in terms of salary. Looking down the board, there's just not a lot of guys in that 6,000 tier at all. Everybody's either 5,000 or they're up in the 7s, the 8s, the 9s. Somebody directly in that price range, 6,300. Tyler Hero, shooting guard and small forward eligible, so you stick him in whichever spot works better for you. Only 15% owned. He's only coming up 9.8% optimal, so he's technically negatively leveraged. But when it's a raw ownership total of only 14.9 as compared to some of these guys in the 20s to 30s, I think that buys you a little bit of differentiation. So maybe Hero, but not on virtue of like his probability or his scoring upside. In that case, I would probably lean toward D'Lo if the ownership doesn't matter to you, and then see where you can spend that additional money.
All righty. One more here. Teddy Wayman says Şengün or Bridges on FanDuel. I would lean towards Şengün, even though I don't think he'll play more than 28, 29 minutes. Bridges kind of empty stats. Another guy they're going to need in the playoffs because what does he do? A lock down the best scorer on the other team, regardless of position. That sounds like something that's important. What do the Kings not have tonight?
Talent?
A scorer at multiple positions. At any position.
There you go. Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. Like I said with Şengün, I wrote him up earlier today, so you can jump into my article and grab a few things about him. But pushing a 40% boom score probability, 20% optimal, slightly positive leverage zone, call it even efficiently. Bridges, on the other hand, I like the player, but not the greatest fantasy point per minute contributor in the world, 0.77. He gets there on these nights that he gets out and racks up the counting stats on defense. 5,800 is a fine price. I think he's a nice little mix and match guy that less than 10% of the field will use, but going in a straight heads up there, you want to go with the probability metrics that we're getting on Şengün.
All right, this is the super chat show. This is kind of fun. We haven't had one like this. So FanDuel single entry, 2v2. This is for Gray. He would like to know Cam Payne and Karl Anthony Towns, or D'Angelo Russell and Jonas. JV.
Got to be Valenciunis, huh?
It's got to be Valenciunis. It'd be way too cheap to be JaVale. So that would be Payne and Cat versus D'Lo and Jonas.
I think I would go with Payne and Karl Anthony Towns here. You're getting Payne. Mm-hmm. I mean, Valenciunis is much further down the board than Karl Anthony Towns in terms of the optimal lineup rate. Towns pushing a 50% boom score probability on a raw FanDuel point projection of 48.43. He's just priced too low at 8,700. You are losing the value option of JaVale at the center spot. But if you're going to Cat, it's totally worth doing. And then you balance that off with going to Payne, who's a 12.9% optimal, 30% boom score probability. That aligns okay with what we're getting on D'Lo. He's 25% optimal, 42% boom score probability. And in terms of the raw points projection, we're talking about a 32 versus a 29. So we're not sacrificing much in that comparison. I like the Karl Anthony Towns campaign side of that one.
All right. You guys want a chance to win 30 free days of Awesemo premium content? I'm going to direct you to the link in chat. It's the Fred Van Elite Fan Club. You win that. Normally, if you win that with an Awesemo avatar, you'll get 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. I believe the last time we ran this, we had 4, if not the top 5, were all Awesemo avatars. I feel a little bad about that. So tonight, if you finish in the top 10 of this with an Awesemo avatar, and we'll cap it at 3, but the top 3 Awesemo avatars, if you're in the top 10, you'll get 30 free days of Awesemo premium content.
What a guy.
So there you go. Dropping that in there since we hadn't given a couple away. If you want to cash that in, you just send a screenshot to me on Twitter and/or Awesemo Hall of Fame, and I will slide into the DMs with the promo code that will get you 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. Reminder, today we are brought to you by OddsShopper. We have another little nugget out there for you. It is on Twitter. It is Awesemo Bets, where every day we are giving away one free bet from our betting package that is out there, and it is performing quite nicely. Not only is that free bet performing quite nicely, so is the actual betting package. They are tracking the ROI via proportional units on this. These are bets that are coming from Alex Baker, Steve DeColt's Buzzard, and Ben Rasa. They are in a variety of sports, but you guys can check that out. I'm going to give you a little hint. Follow Awesemo Bets on Twitter, but today's free bet will be the Warriors -4.5. That is on FanDuel. You can get that at negative or at -114, or that's what it was when it was posted, courtesy of Ben Rasa. Yesterday's bet did come through. It was over on 3.5 rebounds for Klay Thompson. That came in. That was from Steve Buzzard, but they are giving away that and a whole lot more to the subs that are behind the scenes. So definitely want to check that out. Greg SJ, you did win 77. Reach out to hit me up on Twitter. You led the pack, I believe, of the 4 or the 5 logos that were all Awesemo, but I did see you at the top.
Yeah, so, somebody wrote in asking about it. So if you are that person, tweet at EMAC and he will hook you up. Otherwise, just write me back and remind me who you were, and we'll get you hooked up.
Yes, and again, I'm the only one who has to play him tonight. But guess what? OG Anunoby out.
Yeah, I'm just
Malachi Flynn available. He hasn't played in a month or two. Quentin Grimes and Miles McBride are both available for the Knickerbockers. And then DeJounte Murray, probable to play Sunday per head coach,
Helpful.
Greg Popovich. I somehow missed that alert, and I was messaging you. I had 50% Murray, and I was like, yeah, there's no reason to get mad. It just, stuff happens. Last night crushed it on DFS, and I built one lineup in Xfinity NASCAR, their junior circuit, and I finished first out of 1,200 people in my contest there with one hand built lineup. See, this ebbs and flows, gamers. You can't get too angry when something silly happens. It's just it is what it is. There's lots of slates, and you know what has lots of slates? MLB coming up right around the corner, literally starting on Thursday. Right. So you will get all of your favorite Awesemo offerings from last year will be rolling forward for this year. And I'm sure there's a couple new things.
I think we're opening the season with a 3-man booth, 90-minute show live before lock on Thursday afternoon with me, Greg, and Alex last I saw. So should be a fun way to get the season started.
Yes, I see someone asking about, will Draymond even play tonight? I haven't.
Believe he was confirmed.
I think I thought I saw something come through that said he'd be available. If he's in the starting lineup, I would expect him. Okay. Embiid's in. Draymond.
PJ Tucker's out.
Ooh, Tucker.
Anunoby's out. I swear I saw Draymond confirmed.
Oh, they just put up the 5:30 injury list.
Yeah.
That's why, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll wait for this to come in. Yep, Embiid's playing. But Draymond, there are available pivots in the last 2 games, kind of help each other out there. So even though they're off by themselves, it does work out. There we go.
Let's talk about the star level real quick with Murray most likely going and now Embiid in. Does that change the way that you were looking at the star tier? Because I was kind of expecting one of those 2 guys not to play, and it was Embiid more for me. Which I'm only playing. I just threw one lineup into FanDuel today just to have it. I'm basically done with the NBA season outside of analysis and work and everything. But I had Harden in that one, and now I'm reconsidering that because I was expecting Embiid not to play. Does that have a trickle down impact on what you were doing in terms of your lineup builds, in terms of that Mcgee exposure that we talked about earlier on the DK slate?
It won't impact my Mcgee exposure. The way I'm sitting here right now, I'm probably not going to play these first 2 games because it's going to take away too much from the show. So that will solve the Embiid challenge for me. I don't think it would.
To put that before you continue though, real quick, just to put that in perspective for the people who are watching, if you were not on a show right now, you wouldn't be crossing those games off.
Correct.
Yeah, because there are some important plays, I think, on, you could argue with a couple on the Knicks there and at least star caliber on the Sixers. So I wouldn't necessarily cross those off.
Yeah, absolutely. That's more, again, good call out there, Terry. Yeah. So this is, and then you're dialing things back. I had maintained for a little bit, but I just joined the 8 o'clock the 7 o'clock slate because those games look good. So I've now registered for a second slate while sitting here knowing I'm not going to set my lineups for the first slate. Degeneration, baby.
That's a good idea.
Generation X. Did you see Stone Cold was back? I hadn't realized he hadn't wrestled in 19 years.
I did not see that. No, I didn't.
Yeah, he was at WrestleMania. I didn't watch it, but I read an article about it.
Yeah, no, I usually, it's like just, tangentially floating around my my radar out there most of the time. So I catch stories like that, but I didn't realize he hadn't been around for 19 years. I did see that Triple H is never going to wrestle again.
Let's see. I didn't like Hunter Helmsley that much.
Yeah, he was a heel. He was a bad guy. But you never like to see a guy's career in anything end because of injury or something like that.
Best finishing move of all time.
I mean, is it not just Hulk Hogan's big, I'm going to hold my boot up and you're going to run into it move?
No.
And then followed by the leg drop? I mean, come on.
Rikishi Fatu, the stink face. Nobody wanted that.
Was that stolen from Yokozuna and he just throw the guy into the turnbuckles and drop his ass in his face?
Pretty much, the stink face. And his tag team partner, Scotty Too Hottie, who wore ski goggles in the ring and would do the worm as his finishing move. How the hell do you have the worm as your finishing move? I don't know. Those were the
bottom of the barrel writing. That's how.
All right. Back to NBA DFS. Back to NBA DFS. So Pat Beverly is questionable. Alexei Pokashevsky and Jeremiah Robinson Earl will play tonight. That may mute some of our love there for Moses Brown in this one. That could push me towards a little more JaVale than I was intending. I still want to be under the field, but that could move me from half of whatever the field is to 2/3, depending on how my lineup shake out, Terry. That would be something that kind of moves me, or it could force me into even more Bismack Biyombo.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything on official Biyombo versus Mcgee news or anything like that, right?
Just looking. No, we have not. The rock bottom, the people's elbow was better. The people's elbow was good.
I mean, if we're really, really talking about that question, there's really not a better answer than Jimmy Superfly Snuka's ridiculous top turnbuckle 30 feet in the air, belly splashes. Those were amazing. I think he ended his is he still alive? He might be dead, but I think he ran into some later life trouble, so maybe you're not supposed to say that
anymore. Was it him or was it Ricky the Dragon Steamboat that murdered
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat? Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Macho Man Randy Savage in 1980 in the Intercontinental title match was one of the greatest all-time wrestling matches. I still remember that one. They hit each other with the bell and all that crazy shit. That was one of the all-time matches.
Remember? Do you remember?
I'd so much rather talk about
the Godfather. Was it the Godfather and the Ho Train? I don't think they do.
I was more of an 80s, early 90s wrestling guy, before
JYD, Junkyard Dog, baby.
Yeah. Oh no, that's Bruce the Barber Beefcake and the Big Boss Man and those guys. Yeah, those were my guys. But then we got into when I was in college was the NWO type days and the Attitude Era and all that stuff. And that's when I started tuning out from wrestling a little bit. But like I said, still tangentially aware. What do you think of RJ Barrett on this slate from that early game that you're skipping? Because he stands out to me as kind of somebody that
would be the one regrettable miss. Yeah. Him and Embiid are the ones I would miss.
Yeah, 7,300 on FanDuel, 25% optimal, 26% boom score probability, 7,900 on DK, 1721. He's over-owned to his probability marks on both sites. It's borderline, I don't care. I think he's good enough to push through that ownership, and at his value at those positions, I think he justifies the ownership. I don't want to see it go any further negative. If it was -20 leverage scores, I don't think I'd be interested, but I think I can get by, maybe if the field's at 38% on FanDuel, I'm coming in 25, 30, a little closer to his optimal lineup. So maybe undercut it by a little, but I still want to be in the RJ Barrett business with no Julius Randle and just given the way he's played all year.
All right, another super chat here. I'm going to let you think about this one while I do a quick promo here. So this is from Jake Lindland. He is asking 3 must plays, single bullet in the DK 555. So DraftKings, who would be the 3 you would want in a single bullet? It's not a single entry tournament, but he's just playing one. What I can tell all you guys is you can get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content from nearly every DFS sports out there with the weekly pass for just $29.95. This includes full access to all of the premium content and tool on Awesemo.com. That's everything: the boom bust tool, the top lines tool for hockey, the top stacks tool for MLB. We've got all sorts of good stuff coming in. While there are just 7 days remaining in NBA regular season, we will have robust content, of course, for the playoffs. You've got another 24 or 26 days, I've lost track, of hockey regular season. And then we've got baseball starting on Thursday. This is the sweet spot for all of it. Oh yeah, the Masters is starting on Thursday as well. There's a lot of things going on Thursday, so you can check that out. If you want just an express package for NBA, you can get that for as low as $4.95 per week. Please note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on to these subscriptions, but it can be easily added on separately to any of these. All right, Terry, your 3 must plays DK bullet, single bullet in the DK 555.
So I'm an update behind on some of the rates here, but they're going to be roughly similar. To me, I definitely want to have I want to have JaVale McGee in that lineup. He's still coming up like 50%.
You can't spell JaVale McGee without Joel Embiid.
And that would be my next click, I think. I think I'm looking at kind of just building a nice little front court core there by going to Embiid, McGee, and I would throw Draymond into that mix. I think Draymond's giving us a nice little opportunity at a little bit of leverage. He's only 14% owned, $6,000, not all that expensive, power forward and center eligible. So you put him into the power forward spot, you put one of Embiid and McGee at the center and the util, and then you build out the rest of your lineup with some of these premium plays that are available to you. I think, you've got a couple different options at power forward there right at the top of the board. Like you could stick a Mo Wagner into that spot, that remaining power forwards, or that remaining forward spot at 4,200. And then have a nice little core. He's under-owned, only 18.9%, 20% optimal, 42.37% boom score. And then you build up to some mid-tier guys. You build up to like an RJ, a Brandon Ingram, some of these others, and Anthony Edwards. So Chris Paul on the board there as well for me. So there's a lot of ways to put that together, but I like starting it out with that front court combination. If you want to swap Karl Anthony Towns in for Embiid in that combination and save a little money, I have absolutely no issues with that.
All right. This is a good question, so we'll loop back on this. Not a super chat, but Dustin Bittinger would like to know how many players does OKC have with Robinson, Earl, and Pokusevski now playing. So this is always easy to find. We have a projected stats page for all of our sports next to the fantasy projections, but for NBA, we also include the minutes on the same page, just because that's something we always look at. So I've just filtered by OKC. We are projecting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players. You've got basically Robinson, Earl for about 12 minutes. Oliver Sarr, of course, he's going to feel a pinch there as well. We're looking at him for 20 minutes. We still have Jalen Horde for 29 minutes, Pokusevski for regular 29, Isaiah Roby for current regular 31. And then because they're really thin on competent guards, you're going to have the rookie Vit Krejci and Teo Maledon are running between 32 and 34 minutes. So it's rather top heavy. They have plenty of players, but the guys that'll take the biggest hit is Oliver Sarr, although he's someone that you go out there and watch him and he can have 3 rebounds and 2 dunks on 5 trips. And you're just like, whoa, this guy's awesome. And then he doesn't see the court again. So yeah, your mileage may vary on that one. But the guy's taking the biggest hit. Aaron Wiggins, he'll lose some minutes, and it's just harder for him to do anything if there's other people that are taking the usage away, which is darn near everybody, even though these are all G League type players, or mostly. And then Lindsey Waters also is going to feel a bit of a pinch there. He won't get as many field goal opportunities with those 2 guys back.
Yeah. Were you getting to any of Jalen Horde? Because he rates out really nicely in terms of our probability marks, and he's not getting much attention on the DK slate. 4,700, both forward positions, 5K on FanDuel, small forward only. He's drawing a middling optimal lineup rate, an okay boom score, and no ownership at all, 0.9% ownership there. So I think he's fine there, but I think he's targetable on DK, 14.2% optimal, 32.3% boom for 4,700 and a 6.8 ownership projection, leaves him at a 7.4 leverage score. I kind of like that. I think it's appealing. I just don't think he's coming up all that frequently. And I'm not sure. Let me see in the that crunch that I ran out. Oh no, he was coming up. Yeah, 40ish% across those 500 pure optimals from earlier. Were you getting a decent share of him?
Yeah, because of small forward. is he's small forward, power forward eligible on DK, but we've got plenty of guards and we've got plenty of centers. So he's kind of bubbling up. I will probably be around 30 to 35%, I would think, which feels maybe aggressive. I haven't done a recent ownership run for us yet. One World Religion said the magic words, Tommy Wildfire Rich. That was my favorite wrestler back in the day. I believe he was on one of the Georgia satellite circuits.
That's a name I don't know.
Well, he was on because we had, I guess it was only TBS back in the day. They had something Georgia wrestling was one of the shows, and then the other show was the emerging, I guess it was the WWF at that point, not the World Wildlife Federation.
Came in and bought up all the different or bought up or ran out of town all the different locals, and then dominated. Yeah, looking at the small forwards only on DK, if we sort by optimal lineup rate, Horde lands 5th. He lands behind Ingram, Edwards, Cam Johnson, and RJ Barrett in terms of our optimal lineup rate. Every single one of those guys is owned over 20% of the time. RJ pushing 30%, where Horde comes in at 6.8% owned, 4,700. Cam Johnson's the logical comparison point. He's 4,600, same position at both forward spots. He's 17.6% optimal, 35% boom score probability, owned 25% of the time. Horde is just a natural little pivot there. As long as we're comfortable with that 29-minute projection, he's got basically the same probability marks and what, a fifth of the ownership, basically, or a fourth of the ownership. I think that's an interesting pivot target in that, like, fair lower mid-range salary type forward. I think he's interesting there.
All right, let's get back, see if anybody's asked more questions. Oop, here's another super chat. This is from Nick Barrett.
Would you rather play Horde for 47 or Fournier for 53?
Never Fournier, never Google.
Yeah, good answer. What's the super chat?
The super chat is he has $3,500 left on DK utility, which means no JaVale McGee because he's 37. Who do you like for 3,500 or less on DK?
35 or less. If we wipe everybody out, sort by the optimals, we've got JaVale's buddy Bismack at the top of the board at 11.4% optimal. So we'll just go right there. I mean, that's an easy pivot. 52.6% boom score probability. The fragility of minutes would be the only question about Bismack. You've got another Suns player immediately below him in Landry Shamet. Different positioning, obviously. Also dead minimum 3,000. That buys you back $500. Maybe you can do something with that 500 to improve your lineup in a different spot. Sounds like it's kind of a tightly put together lineup. The next guys on the board there are going to be Iggy Brazdeikis, Torrey Craig, Naz Reid, Moses Moody. I think I would go with one of the Suns players. PJ Tucker's still on the board, but we know he's not going, so some adjustment there needs to be made. But yeah, I think I would decide between one of those two Suns if we're kind of building that lineup, and maybe the thinking there was I'm not using JaVale because I don't expect him to go. I expect Bismack. That kind of leads me to that Bismack decision anyway. So I think I would go that route.
Yes, one other Torrey. I can't remember if you said him, Torrey Craig.
Yeah, he was the next name. It was Iggy and then Torrey Craig. But Craig, he comes up 4% optimal, negatively leveraged at 12% ownership.
He could get you 4, he could get you 40, and we wouldn't bat an eye with either outcome.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But, it's just, I don't know that the negative leverage is something I'm comfy chasing in that spot. He's owned 3 times as much as he is optimal.
All right. Cactus Jack or Mankind?
Mankind or what was his other name? Cactus Jack, Mankind.
Well, just Mick Foley, I guess.
Yeah, I thought there was another one in there. Anyway.
Oh, Dude Love.
There you go. That was the other one. I like the freak show Mankind version of him best. I mean,
he was the sock
crazy. Yeah. He took those crazy bumps in the Japanese wrestling federations and everything too, where they're just legit hitting each other with barbed wire and baseball bats and stuff. It's pretty hardcore and crazy at a time.
Good times. All right, 12 minutes to go here, gamers. We are brought to you by Odd Shopper. Odd Shopper, a lot of fun tonight. Couple things I want to point out there is you can find your bets quite easily. All it takes is about 30 seconds. You just go over to Odds Shopper. .com. That's ODDS shopper, 2 S's total, shopper.com. And you can sort by sport. You can bring it up by player props. You can bring it up by team futures. You can bring it up by postseason awards, etc. You sort it out, and then you can sort it by best ROI, or if you're playing over there on one of the many sites that now offer essentially player props or over unders, you can pick on win probability. Those are the key things that I like to look at, especially if I'm playing at Prize Picks or No House Advantage, etc. So definitely a good spot to go. The one I like the best out there, and I think we have this kind of as a neutral play, but I do want to point out Jalen Green has 30 made 3-pointers in his last 5 games. I'm sorry, it's 29 made 3-pointers. That's unreal. He is averaging 12.8 3-point attempts in this stretch. Knock yourselves out, folks. 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, and 5. Take the over.
I did jump back over to YouTube in the window just for the first time since probably the start of the show, and just watched it scroll through at hyperspeed of just wrestling one after another, just being shouted at us.
All right, Andrew Kang. I believe Andrew Kang felt the pain, as did I, with DeJounte Murray the other night. He says, what's up, guys? Good luck tonight. FanDuel, single entry, Torrey Craig, Bam Adebayo, or Tyler Hero and Mikal Bridges. I would lean towards the first one.
That was FanDuel?
That is FanDuel single entry.
Yeah, I'd probably lean towards the Bam side. Let me see. Where's Craig coming in on the FanDuel board? Craig's is kind of uninspiring on FanDuel. 3,600, 2.7% optimal lineup rate, 18.85% boom score probability. Who are my other choices there? Hero and Bridges?
Craig and Adebayo versus Hero and Bridges.
Yeah, man. I don't love whatever's going on in that lineup. I'm going to say that I would probably look to rebuild that lineup and find better options, because if you're ending at a point where those are your choices, it's probably not a great construction. That said, I would probably lean toward the Bam side of that one.
All right, let's see here.
My concern with Bam, just to further that point, he's fine. 8,400 is low, but he's owned a little bit too much. He's owned 29% of the time versus a 21% optimal score. He's negatively leveraged. And I think we've just got more pliable, more viable options at the power forward and center spot than him. So I don't love spending the 8,400 on Bam. I think you can do better in that position and then have more money to spend at kind of these other spots. So I do like him in a total vacuum, but with that ownership tag, I don't really love it.
Yeah, he says he's stacked at guards and he likes his sneaky center, so he's working around those two positions.
Okay.
Let's see, 9 minutes to go. Get those lineups in unless you're like me, but let's go double check. Does everybody have a late start time? Why, yes, they're all 9 or 9:30. That's important because I'm not uploading lineups right now. That doesn't mean you guys should ignore those. I just happen to be because I'm on the show. Malakar's got a baseball draft
ETA
tonight.
in the chat didn't give us any money, but he does say that EMAC DFS, you never take down attorney. Why are you giving advice? Would you like to respond? He didn't pay us for the opportunity for you to respond, but I believe you've won a tourney or two in your this is your first year playing DFS, right?
Yeah, I do. I do just fine, guys. You don't have to worry about me. You play in the low dollar contest, you're going to see me there. Why is that competition not as fierce? And the Apex Predators aren't floating around there, especially on DraftKings. I'm almost at my $1 million in entry fees. I think I can make it through the one more football season before I hit that, or potentially if I start getting selective, I can make it through the next baseball season. You'll see me in those all the time.
You haven't deposited since like 1982, as I hear.
Actually, true story. I haven't really deposited since my 4th month playing DFS. That was back in 2011, I think is when I started.
But who the hell wants to hear your advice?
I don't know. Do I get 1099s every year? Yes, I do. ROI probably about 4.5% on my play, but I'm also getting about 4.5% in rake back and total reward. So I usually clear somewhere between 10 and 15K on my volume and play. I'll take it. The Real
Jet sent us his free super chat. He's been a member for 12 months. Congrats on the year anniversary. Draymond, Poole, Ingram, which two EMAC 2024?
I would definitely say Poole and Ingram. Those would be the two I would look for. I would think that Draymond may get a little bit of rest in game if this one is well at hand, and it should be since they are favored by 6 in Sacramento.
I would probably go Draymond and Poole there. Just because I've talked up Draymond so many times, I wrote about him on the site. It's not like I chase correlation a lot in basketball, but those two are playing a little bit of a two-man game as well. So you get a little bit of a bump there, maybe. So I think I would go that route. But I don't dislike your answer, and I don't think that you're wrong by any means. Corey Randall, do you want to read off his super chat?
Absolutely. Just on DK, consider locking in JaVale and Moses Brown, then get whoever you want. No issues with that. It'll be slightly popular because those are two of the more popular plays. I mean, obviously, JaVale is looking like the landslide option on DK tonight, but I have zero issues with that because as Adam and Josh and Eric and Ryan and all of our other hosts point out all the time, you can still differentiate in basketball with chalky players in your lineup. We've got 8 teams on the 8 games, which means 16 teams in our player pool. Should not be an issue getting different. You may want to leave off 1 or 2 of those other super popular plays, but guess what? If you just go to the second best projected guy at the position, you'll get a popularity discount of about 30-40%. So it's very easy to start getting it different. And then that'll get you, if you have a good lineup, gets you in the top 1%, get a little gust from the gods, Romeo. And,
my favorite movie.
Clear that water and get your name up in the top 10. See your name.
I probably watched that movie 4 times this month. And we are not that far into this month. Yeah, well, we'll include the last 2 weeks of March in that. But yeah, one of my favorite sports movies, and it's been on cable a lot lately. So I've caught it a lot of 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. viewings recently. Moses Brown is interesting on that DK slate. He's dropped down. He's only 9% owned now, 14.2% optimal. So you're actually squeezing a nice leverage score out of Moses Brown now. So he actually is a bit of a differentiator over there. I like that a lot. I think that's a dynamite combo. And to your point, and it's something that gets wildly overblown in NBA DFS, no one of these guys being extremely popular is a detriment to a lineup. You need to play popular guys because they are typically the best, the sharpest plays of the day. The field is just sharp these days. Leaving out a guy just because he individually has raw ownership that's above 50%, like JaVale, let's say, is a mistake. We want to consider the full lineup. We want to consider the combinations of players that we're using. And as long as the combinations are low owned, you're fine. You can play guys who are owned over 50%. And you can kind of ignore a negative leverage on a play that is as strong as JaVale, who's 78% likely to hit his required ceiling score to win you a tournament and 47% optimal. I just don't care what the ownership is at that point.
All right. We are 4 minutes away. I see someone mention Kevin Porter Jr. We did not talk about him enough. You have plenty of time to work him into your lineups. I really like him over there on Prize Picks. Take his fantasy points or his points, rebounds, and assists. Pair that up with Jalen Green over, unless they bumped it, 3.5 3-pointers. I built out a lot of my cards there this morning with those two guys as the core options. That's something that I think they're both outstanding. Green gets, I prefer his 3-pointers, just gets, because I mentioned he has 29 in his last 5 games, which is just impressive. But I get a little nervous because he's mostly a scoring only kind of guy. And if the shot is not falling, it's real hard to make up those 30 PRA or whatever he's at, 33. Whereas you could still volume your way into being alive for 3.5 3-pointers. So for him, that's kind of where I land on that one.
Green 13.3% assist rate, 5.1% rebounding rate. If you're comparing him to KPJ, you get, it's not a comparable price play necessarily, but from KPJ, you get the 31% assist rate as a little bit of a boost to his fantasy scoring. So even if the ball's not going down for him scoring wise, he can rack up some facilitation points and not totally kill you in that spot. But I do like that volume for Jalen Green is pretty ridiculous.
Yep. And then let's see. I had one other thing. We'll talk about the Awesemo MVP here in just a second, but 2 minutes to go here until lock. Make sure you guys are getting those lineups in. Look, it's no fun when I'm not scrambling, Terry. I'm actually looking at chat, answering questions. Normally I'm making you do this because I'm scrambling.
You told us all that I'm just checked out over here. You told us all we were skipping those games, so I figured you got it all handled. I'm just
I'm good.
Along for the ride.
I'm good. What do you think of I'm blanking on his name, Şengün's backup. It starts with the last name starts with the U. Would you consider him
Usman Garuba?
Yes.
His first name starts with a U.
Well, all I was thinking was Lindquist singing Aruba, Jamaica, who I wanted to use everyone. And There was there was a use somewhere in that, and I wasn't.
Somebody mentioned in that conversation that Kokomo is not a real place, and said that they were so disappointed. It was producer Ty mentioned Kokomo. I never knew Kokomo wasn't a real place. I was equally disappointed to find it out the other night in our chat. Usman Garuba, as things currently stand, not really on the board. 19-minute projection, pulling in sub 1% optimal rates across both sites. 6 and change percent boom score probability on FanDuel, under 2% boom score probability DK. If we got a minutes change that I didn't spot in the news, then maybe 3,500, the price is fine if we're getting more than 19 minutes out of him, if he's getting out into the 20s. But based on where we had him projected in my last update, that was a no from me.
And that makes sense. He'd be more of an 8 o'clock slate play, but he is someone that I was looking at this morning as well. But since we were hitting on the Houston guys you don't want to play, Jayshawn Tate. Don't play Jayshawn Tate. I've even X'd him out of my player pool. I think he's a fine player, but he's a glue guy. He's just going to sit back and do whatever they need. You need some defense, need some rebounding, a secondary facilitator, whatever. He's just going to let all these other guys do it. Even with everybody out, he's still not even getting double-digit shots. I think like over his last 9 games, it's something like most of his games are 8 field goal attempts. That's just not going to get you there.
Yeah, sub 20% usage for the season, 0.8 FanDuel points per minute over the last 3 games in 26.3 minutes. Not a lot about his like playing time or anything has changed, but the production's not really there. He's a 0.96 player for the season, but in recent games it hasn't really been there. And like you said, he's just kind of filling roles. So that's not really on the board for me either. He's fine. He's just a middling option at 41, 53, 100 across the sites, but nobody I'm going out of my way for in any lineup.
All right, we are at a lock. So I want to remind you guys, another offering here at Awesemo is the Awesemo MVP Club. All you got to do is text to, and I'm sure Jordan will put this up on the screen, but text MVP, as in most valuable player, to 1-660-656-4417. And they will send you a text back from another number. I don't know why.
There's going to be a 011 international country code in front of that number first, too.
Yeah, something along those
ways. A little bit more complicated. But I asked if we could get a short code. You know, like text MVP to 62582 instead of 1660. What's that number one more time, Mac?
Well, I'm going to show you. It comes in. We'll pick it up on my screen on my iPhone with the Awesemo logo. So I know it was them coming back to me.
Not bad. That's pretty cool. I didn't know we were doing that.
Yes. So
I'm actually getting a tour of this console on Monday, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So we're doing some free beta testing. You guys are going to get in and get to see some of the first look new tools and offerings that we have behind the scenes. No cost to you on this. You'll also be able to get the occasional flash discount and a few other things as we start to expand this program. This is just free. You don't even have to, I believe you don't even have to be a regular Awesemo member to be an Awesemo MVP. This is beta stuff. So it's going to be cool stuff, but then once the bugs are worked out of it, it's going away. But this is just a little taste. So we'll see a little bit more of some of the cool things we're putting together that will be the offerings behind the paywall. But with that, we're going to get on out of here. We're starting this up all again. Oh, there's no basketball tomorrow. Well, there's no NBA tomorrow. There's only the national championship.
Oh, right.
So tomorrow's going to be a good day to build out those Excel models, and because I won't be listening to Awesemo shows while I should be doing regular work
all day, baby. I love it. I've been gearing up for baseball all week. I've got my model finally. I think I was telling you this, like every year I have to stitch that thing back together. It's just, it's Frankenstein. It's all sewed together. It was the first one I ever built. So there's pages and tabs on there that don't even exist anymore. It's a nightmare. And I have to remember how it actually works every single year. So we're like that close. I've got my home run model up and running for the first slate. Got most of my projections there. We're getting there.
All right. I see someone saying I talk too much. You forgot about Murray. So my last guess is, did we not hit on that enough? He is available to play per Coach Greg Popovich. Portland is just absolutely mailing it in. We already saw the Spurs crush this team 2 days ago in San Antonio. That's where they're playing again tonight. I did write up DeJounte Murray. I think he's a very intriguing tournament play, but we have a plethora of value, and this is someone where he's going to have to get it done probably in a short time frame. So it's sort of like the Chris Paul take. Could he pile up a bunch of points in a hurry? Yes. Could a few other people at that salary level disappoint? Yes. but now we got to get two things right. There's nothing wrong with that, and he'll be in my player pool, as will Chris Paul, as I'm getting ready to build my lineups for the later games. But he's not the full-throated slam dunk or full-throated roar and saying, jam him in your lineups. It's a little tougher because
I think he is still
not great.
I think he is actually still only probable to play. I don't think we've gotten the official 100% confirmation. He probably will be a little bit under-owned for his quality. So I do like him. He was coming up in our last update, 17.8% optimal at the monstrous 11.2. Congrats on reaching the 11,000 price tier when you started in the sevens, I think, on DK, DeJounte Murray. Pretty stellar season from him. But I think he's going to be a little bit
both sides. And now Murray's out, they're saying.
He's out.
I haven't gotten that alert yet. So
shit, then don't play him.
Oh, and Pirtle potentially out. So not overly a surprise either. So this is perfectly good. Trey Jones, I think, is who we want to turn to now on San Antonio. The next games do not lock until 7:00. We have plenty of time for projections to update. We can step back, probably even have a little dinner and come back and reassess our lineups. Plenty to take care of us
news
there.
On Primo? He was on the board already. Yeah, that's another guy he's available. Yeah, so Primo at 3,500 is a little bit. He was already pulling a 22.
Beverly out, Beasley in. Beasley was already rolled out.
Beasley's been out all day. What? Okay. All right, Jakob Poeltl's out. All right. That was just a twist with the Beasley news there. But yeah, Murray, obviously we're not playing him. I do think you're right. Trey Jones is going to pick up some run there. 3,700 on FanDuel, 42 on DK. He's going to become interesting at those prices. I don't know that he necessarily replaces the value plays that we already had though. That's something I'll definitely, like you said, go have a quick snack and then come back and check the updates for where we've got him in the boom bust and everything. But especially at the 37 on FanDuel, that could make him a little interesting. But we did have a lot of value, or a lot of our premium plays coming in the guard spots, and we were getting some of the value in the forward. So I don't necessarily know that it changes that overall shape of the slate. It might be a differentiator if you jump in and change the angle of some of your lineups to go in from the value at the guard position there with him. So think it through. Definitely take a look at where he ranks out after the update. But think it through around guys like him. And then we'll probably see like Alani Walker is 3,500 on the FanDuel slate, was at 20 minutes. We'll probably pick up a few additional minutes as well. Shooting guard, small forward, 44 on DK. So yeah, there's going to be some changes coming in that lineup for sure.
All right. While Jordan's busy searching for the orchestra music, I'll play us on out of here. You can follow Terry on Twitter at DigitalB21. I am at MacPherson DFS. And of course, it is Awesemo_COM. Also follow Awesemo Bets. With that, gamers, good luck.